Close your eyes for a moment and let yourself settle back. The night air is warm and still as you roll the window down just a few inches. You're driving west on a lonely stretch of Nevada highway, the one the state renamed the Extraterrestrial Highway a few years back. There's no traffic, no billboards, only the soft yellow glow of your headlights brushing across creosote bushes and pale sand. The engine hums low and steady, almost like a lullaby. Overhead, the Milky Way spreads itself across the sky in a river of faint silver light, brighter than you've ever seen it in the city. Every star feels close enough to touch. You pass a weathered sign that reads, Rachel, 27 miles. The little ALN is still open, its neon alien silhouette glowing softly in the distance. But you keep driving. The road is perfectly straight, rising and falling in gentle waves across the desert floor. Joshua trees stand like quiet sentinels along the shoulders, their twisted arms raised toward the stars. The only sound is the whisper of tires on asphalt and the occasional soft click of gravel under the chassis. You feel your shoulders loosen. Your breathing slows to match the rhythm of the drive. Out here, the world feels unhurried. There are no cell signals, no notifications, just the immense silence of the basin and range country. The air smells faintly of sage after the day's heat. Every few miles you pass a cattle guard that rattles gently beneath the car, a small reminder that you're still on Earth, still moving forward, yet somehow floating through a landscape that belongs more to the night sky than to any map. Far ahead, the mountains rise in soft and purple against the starfield. Somewhere behind those ridges lies Groom Lake, the dry bed that almost no one is allowed to see. You won't turn off toward it tonight. The gates and the signs and the watchful cameras are still many miles away. But you can feel the pull of it already, the way the desert air seems to thicken just slightly as you draw nearer to the restricted zone. And then, just for a second, you notice something. A single pair of headlights appears on the horizon directly ahead, bright white, perfectly spaced, moving neither toward you nor away. They hover there, low over the dry lake bed, unmoving. You ease off the gas a little, curious, relaxed. The lights stay steady, and then, in the space between one breath and the next, they simply vanish. No turn, no fade, just gone. The highway stretches empty again under the stars. You smile softly to yourself, settle back into the seat, and let the quiet return. Whatever that was, it can wait. For now, there is only the gentle sway of the car, the warm wind through the window, and the endless Nevada night carrying you closer to secrets that have been sleeping beneath the sand for decades. As your car creases quietly over another low rise, the desert floor ahead begins to shimmer. The heat of the day still lingers in the sand, and now, under a sky full of stars, the air plays its oldest trick. Far in the distance, the flat white surface of Groom Lake appears to lift off the ground like a sheet of liquid silver. The dry lake bed floats, weightless, suspended between earth and heaven. Mountains that should be 30 miles away seem to stand just beyond your hood, then slide backward again as you watch. This is the Groom Lake mirage, soft and patient, turning solid things into reflections and reflections into solid things. You slow down a little more, letting the engine idle low. The radio scans empty frequencies, filling the car with gentle static that almost sounds like breathing. Out here, distances lie. A runway light can look like a star that has fallen too low. A test aircraft gliding without lights can vanish completely against the dark mountains, only to reappear somewhere else entirely. The desert has been doing this long before any runway was ever poured, long before fences, long before names. It simply likes to hide what it holds. You smile at how peaceful the trickery feels. There is no menace in the mirage, only a quiet kind of magic. The lake bed ripples like water, and for a moment you imagine stepping out onto it, feeling cool waves against your ankles instead of baked salt that would crunch underfoot. The air itself seems to curve around secrets, bending light, bending sound, bending belief. People have watched whole convoys disappear into this silver haze during the day, only to learn later the trucks were never there at all, just heat waves dancing. And yet, sometimes the things that vanish in the mirage are real. Sometimes a bright disk rises silently above the mountains, catches the moonlight for a heartbeat, then slips back into the wavering air as though it was never more than a trick of tired eyes. The desert doesn't mind the difference. It keeps both kinds of secrets equally well. You take a slow breath, tasting the dry sweetness of sage. Nothing feels urgent. The road remains empty, the stars remain bright, and the lake keeps floating in its gentle illusion. Whatever is hidden beyond the next ridge can stay hidden a little longer. For now, there is only the soft sway of the car and the knowledge that out here, seeing isn't quite the same as believing, and believing isn't quite the same as knowing. The highway curves lazily northward, carrying you closer to places no public map names. And the mirage follows, patient and silent, making sure nothing is ever quite as it seems. A little farther along the highway, you pass a faded roadside marker that mentions nothing at all. Most people drive right by it without noticing. But in the 1950s, the men who worked here were handed a very different story. Their recruitment letters spoke of a place called Paradise Ranch. The name was deliberate, almost playful. Imagine receiving an offer from the Central Intelligence Agency inviting you to work at a scenic ranch in sunny Nevada. Palm trees were promised, a swimming pool, good food, even horseback riding on days off. It sounded like a paid vacation with a security clearance attached. Of course, when the new arrivals stepped off the bus, the first thing they saw was mile upon mile of nothing: beige sand, gray mountains, and a dry lake bed that cracked like old porcelain. No palms, no pool, no horses, just a few Quonset huts, a water tower, and the endless wind. One pilot is said to have laughed out loud and told his wife on a censored phone call, "They got me with Paradise Ranch, but it sure ain't paradise." The name stuck anyway, whispered among crews with affection and irony. The CIA chose the words carefully. Harsh places need gentle names if you want the best people to volunteer. Lockheed's Kelly Johnson, the brilliant designer who needed absolute secrecy for his new spy plane, liked the joke. He used the ranch in memos and phone calls for years. Even President Eisenhower was briefed using the cover name at first. It softened the edges of what was really happening: a remote, highly classified test site where men would live in barracks, eat in a cafeteria, and work under a veil of total silence. Out here under the stars tonight, you can almost hear the echo of those early conversations. Young engineers trading stories about the ranch they'd been sold, laughing quietly so the sensors on the phone line wouldn't catch the sarcasm. The name was a lullaby of its own, making the isolation feel temporary, almost fun. And it worked. Hundreds of the country's brightest minds agreed to disappear into the desert for months at a time, all because someone gave the place a name that felt like a promise of shade and cool water. As you drive on, the wind rocks the car very gently, the way a cradle rocks. Paradise Ranch, Dreamland, Watertown, Homey Airport. The names layer over one another like blankets. Each one a little deception, each one a little truth. And beneath them all lies the same quiet, starlit expanse that has never cared what we choose to call it. The road ahead is dark and smooth, inviting you deeper into the night, deeper into the story. It was August 1955, and the desert night was warm and perfectly still. A single runway, freshly packed salt and clay, stretched across the dry lake bed like a pale ribbon under the moon. At the far end sat an aircraft that looked more like a glider than anything meant to spy on the Soviet Union. Its wings were impossibly long and thin, 80 feet from tip to tip, holding barely more than a whisper of fuel. Pilots called it the Angel. The official name was simply U-2. Tony Levier, Lockheed's chief test pilot, climbed into the cockpit that night wearing a partial pressure suit that made him look half astronaut already. The canopy closed with a soft sigh. A single jeep towed the delicate machine to the threshold. No fanfare, no crowds, just a handful of engineers in short-sleeve shirts, cigarettes glowing like fireflies in the dark. The Pratt & Whitney J57 engine spooled up with a low, distant moan, almost polite. Then the Angel began to roll, gathering speed with surprising grace. At 80 knots the long wings lifted, lighter than most people's dining tables, caught the air and lifted. The U-2 rose silently, almost reluctantly, as though the night itself was pulling it upward. Within moments it was a dark cross against the stars, climbing, until the engine note faded into the wind and only the faint navigation lights remained. Down on the dry lake, the men stood quietly, heads tilted back. They knew they were watching something new in the world, an aircraft that could drift above 65,000 feet, higher than any fighter could follow, higher even than surface-to-air missiles of the day could reliably reach. From that altitude, the curve of the Earth was visible, and the blackness of space pressed close overhead. Pilots would later describe the view as serene, almost spiritual, sunrise and sunset happening twice in a single mission while the land below remained wrapped in night. Mission after mission that summer, the U-2s took off in the cool darkness and returned at dawn, touching down so lightly the tires barely chirped. Each landing left only the faintest puff of dust on the ancient lake bed. The program was so secret that even the air traffic controllers at nearby bases were told the strange radar tracks were weather research. Tonight, as your own headlights sweep across the same empty expanse, you can almost feel that gentleness still lingering in the air. The same stars that watched the Angel's first flights are watching you now. The same silence holds the lake bed in its soft embrace. Nothing disturbs the peace of 1955 out here. The years have simply added layers, like dust over an old photograph. And yet, every once in a while, someone watching from Tikaboo Peak swears they still see a dark, long-winged shape drifting soundlessly against the Milky Way long after the U-2s were retired. A trick of memory, perhaps, or maybe just the desert remembering its first angel. The road carries you onward, smooth and unhurried. By late 1955, a few local ranchers and the occasional trucker on Highway 93 began noticing things on clear nights. A soft orange glow would bloom above the mountains behind Groom Lake, growing brighter for a minute or two, then fading away. Sometimes it split into two, sometimes three separate lights that drifted upward like embers rising from an invisible campfire. They never made a sound. No jet roar, No helicopter thump, just perfect silence as they climbed until they merged with the stars. People called the Civil Aviation Office in Las Vegas. The office called the base. The base always had the same calm answer. High-altitude weather balloons, or perhaps flares dropped during night training, or the planet Venus looking unusually bright through the thin desert air. Everyone nodded, satisfied with the explanation, and went back to sleep. The lights were never aggressive. They simply appeared, drifted, and vanished, leaving only a faint warmth in the memory. Airline pilots flying the Los Angeles to Salt Lake route started seeing them too. Silver disks that caught the last rays of sunset long after the ground had gone dark, hanging motionless for minutes on end, then shooting upward so smoothly that radar barely registered the departure. The reports were filed politely, stamped, and placed in folders marked insufficient data. No one was alarmed. The Cold War was young, and strange lights in the Nevada sky felt almost natural. Even the men inside the fences sometimes paused during their cigarette breaks to watch. AU-2 returning at dusk could reflect the sun in a way that turned the entire aircraft into a blazing coin of light. When it banked, the glow vanished as though someone had switched off a lamp in the sky. The watchers on the ground smiled knowingly, proud of their secret work that looked, to the untrained eye, exactly like something from another world. Yet every now and then the light behaved in ways no one could brief away. It hovered directly over the dry lake bed, pulsing gently, then descended again behind the mountains without ever producing a sonic boom or a contrail. Those moments were noted quietly in personal logbooks, never in official ones. The desert kept its counsel. Tonight, as your headlights sweep across the empty flats, you can almost feel those early lights still drifting somewhere above the ridges, soft as fireflies, patient as memories. They never hurried. They never threatened. They simply reminded anyone who happened to look up that the night sky over Groom Lake has always held more than it was willing to explain. You ease the car along, windows down, letting the cool air wash over you. The stars feel close, almost protective. Whatever those first lights really were, they became the quiet opening notes of a very long, very gentle song we are still listening to. The name itself arrived almost by accident. On a 1950s map of the Nevada Test and Training Range, the dry lake and its surrounding hills were simply labeled Area 51 inside a plain black rectangle. It was one square among dozens. Area 12, Area 15, Area 51. Nothing special, just a grid reference for nuclear effects tests that never actually happened there. No one inside the program called it that. They still said the ranch, or Watertown, or Dreamland after the radio call sign. But somewhere along the way, civilian ears caught the number. Ham radio operators scanning military frequencies heard it first. Then an article in a small aviation magazine mentioned strange goings-on at AEC Area 51. By the early 1960s, model kit boxes showed futuristic aircraft marked Area 51 Test Facility, and the phrase slipped into living rooms across the country. Popular magazines ran grainy photos of the empty desert with captions that wondered aloud what might be hidden beyond the warning signs. Each retelling added a little more stardust. People began driving out on weekends with lawn chairs and thermos bottles, parking just outside the boundary, hoping to glimpse whatever made the orange lights dance. The guards waved politely from their jeeps and asked them to move along. No one was ever angry. It felt more like being turned away from a quiet garden than a fortress. The name Area 51 grew gentle wings of its own. It floated through late-night talk shows, through letters to editors, through the dreams of children who pressed their faces to bedroom windows, certain that something wonderful and hidden was happening under those same stars. By the 1980s, the name had become a password, a smile, a shared secret between strangers. Say Area 51, anywhere in the world, and people leaned in closer, eyes soft with wonder. It no longer mattered that the real place still looked, from the air, like empty sand and a few silver hangars. The legend had outgrown the map. And so, on this warm November night in 2025, as you coast along the extraterrestrial highway with the windows down and the radio silent, the words feel perfectly natural on your tongue. Area 51. For syllables that once described nothing more than a patch of salt flats, now carry an entire universe of quiet possibility. The road narrows, climbing gently toward the dark silhouette of the Groom Range. Your headlights catch a faded sign you can barely read. Photography prohibited. You smile, ease off the accelerator, and let the car roll almost to a stop. Above the mountains, the stars burn steady and ancient. Everything so far has been on the surface: runways, aircraft, lights that could be explained if you wanted them to be. But what happened when they started digging? Far beneath the lake bed, the desert holds its breath with you, waiting for the next whisper. One night in the early 1980s, a rancher camping near the Queen City summit woke to a new sound. It wasn't loud. It was more like a heartbeat, far away and deep, traveling through the ground itself rather than the air. A steady, patient thrum, thrum, thrum that seemed to come from the mountains behind Groom Lake. He lay in his sleeping bag, eyes open to the stars, feeling the vibration in his chest more than hearing it in his ears. It went on for hours, then stopped just before dawn. The next night it returned, softer, almost polite, as if whatever was making it didn't want to disturb anyone's sleep. From Tikaboo Peak, watchers with binoculars began noticing clusters of new floodlights high on the Papoose Range, lights that pointed straight into the rock face instead of out across the desert. White dust drifted in gentle clouds whenever the wind shifted. Convoys of flatbed trucks carrying massive cylindrical sections, tunnel-boring parts, some said, rumbled up the dirt roads only after sunset and were gone again by morning. The sound of drills became a nightly companion, low and constant, like distant ocean waves heard through a seashell. Inside the restricted zone, the work never paused. Huge rotary cutters chewed slowly into granite and volcanic tuff, grinding out perfect circles 12, 15, even 30 feet across. The rock was surprisingly cooperative, layered in ways that made wide chambers possible without excessive shoring. Dust was vacuumed away, spoil was trucked out under cover of darkness, and scattered across distant dry washes where no one would ever notice the extra load. Everything was done with the same calm efficiency that had built the runways decades earlier, only now the work went downward instead of across. Workers spoke of cool, dry air flowing up from newly opened voids, carrying a faint metallic scent no one could place. The drills sang their low song, pausing only when shifts changed, then starting again with a soft sigh as fresh bits bit into stone. No one shouted. Radio stayed on low volume. Even the generators were muffled so thoroughly that from a mile away you felt the rhythm more than heard it. Night after night, the desert absorbed the vibration, turning it into something almost comforting, like the memory of a train passing far away when you were a child trying to fall asleep. The stars wheeled overhead, unchanged. Coyotes listened, tilted their heads, then went back to hunting. Whatever was happening inside the mountain seemed content to keep its own gentle hours. And so the heartbeat continued, patient and unhurried, night after night, year after year, carving rooms and corridors no blueprint would ever fully show. The desert kept the secret the way it keeps all secrets, quietly, completely, and without judgment. You let the sound settle into your own breathing, slow to match it. Thrum, thrum, thrum. Whenever someone asked, and eventually someone always did. The answer came back smooth and practiced. The new tunnels were simply expanded aircraft shelters. The F-117 Nighthawk had arrived at Groom Lake in the early 1980s, its strange faceted shape too secret to leave parked in the open air where the new Soviet reconnaissance satellites might photograph it. Scooped-out mountainside hangars with huge sliding doors made perfect sense. Long connecting tunnels allowed crews to taxi aircraft underground from assembly buildings to the runway without ever breaking cover. Everything perfectly reasonable. Deeper levels, the briefers explained with calm smiles, were for munitions storage, far enough below the surface to survive anything short of a direct nuclear hit. Environmental control systems needed space, as did maintenance bays tall enough for the next generation of aircraft that would be larger than anyone outside imagined. Fuel farms, power plants, backup generators. All the ordinary infrastructure of a cutting-edge test facility simply required more room. The drilling noise? Routine geotechnical work. The lights on the mountains at night? Shift work to avoid the brutal summer heat. Congressional oversight committees were shown glossy brochures of cavernous but unmistakably man-made chambers. Concrete floors, fluorescent lighting, yellow safety railings, technicians in cleanroom suits pushing tool carts. Nothing unusual. Budget lines read facility hardening and operational continuity enhancement. Auditors nodded, signed off, and went home. Even the increased electrical draw on the Nevada grid was explained away. New supercomputers for radar cross-section modeling needed serious cooling. Pilots assigned to the programs accepted the explanation without question. They flew in on the Dawn Janet 737s, worked their shifts in the cool underground hangars, ate lunch from vending machines that took special tokens, and flew back to Las Vegas before sunset. To them, the tunnels felt safe, almost womb-like, air-conditioned, dust-free, quiet except for the soft whine of hydraulic lifts. They joked that it was the only place in Nevada where you could get away from the sun. From the outside, everything looked orderly and patriotic. More jobs for local contractors. More protection for national security projects. More proof that American ingenuity could literally move mountains when needed. The official story wrapped the digging in layers of common sense the way a blanket wraps around shoulders on a cool evening. And most nights, that was enough. People went back to sleep feeling reassured. The low thrum under the desert became just another part of the landscape, like distant thunder that never quite brings rain. Yet every so often a worker stepping out for a cigarette break would pause and look toward the Papoose Range glowing faintly in the moonlight, wondering why the new doors cut into the rock seemed just a little too smooth, and why some corridors on the blueprints ended in neat blank walls that, in person, continued much farther than any drawing ever admitted. But those thoughts came gently, and they left just as gently. The drills kept singing their patient song. 10 miles south of the main Groom Lake runway, past a ridge no road officially crosses, lies another dry lake, Papoose. Smaller, more perfectly round, almost like a saucer pressed into the earth long ago. From the air, it looks untouched, just another pale scar on the desert floor. But at night, if you know exactly where to look from the slopes of Tikaboo, you can sometimes see a faint string of amber lights appear along its southern edge, lights that form a perfect straight line, then vanish again before dawn. In the late 1980s, those lights became more frequent. Unmarked buses with blacked-out windows left the main base after midnight, drove south on a gravel track that doesn't appear on any map, and disappeared into a fold in the mountains. The passengers, fewer than 50 people in the entire world, were told they were going to a facility designated S-4. No one spoke on the ride. The air inside the bus smelled faintly of diesel and new plastic. When the doors finally opened, cool, conditioned air flowed out, carrying that same unplaceable metallic scent some remembered from the deeper Groom tunnels. The entrance was almost invisible, a pair of huge blast doors set flush into the hillside, painted the exact color of the surrounding rock. When they rolled aside, there was only darkness beyond, then a long, gentle ramp sloping downward. The buses eased inside, doors closed, and the mountains swallowed them whole. To the outside world, Papoose Lake remained empty. Satellite photos showed nothing but wind ripples and the occasional coyote track. Workers already at Groom whispered about it in the cafeteria, voices low. "They're doing something different down south," they'd say, then change the subject. Rumors drifted like dust. Hangars built to hold aircraft that didn't look like any known design. Levels that required a second, even higher clearance badge. Elevators that took minutes to reach bottom. Most dismissed it as typical test site exaggeration. Every program thinks it's the most secret. Yet a few noticed small things. Scientists who used to eat with the pilots suddenly took their trays to separate tables. New security officers who never smiled. Buses that returned to the main base with fewer passengers than they'd left with. One spring night in 1989, a thin, dark-haired physicist named Bob Lazar stepped off one of those buses carrying a folder he wasn't supposed to read yet. He looked up at the rocks ceiling high above, felt the cool air move across his face, and heard, very far away, that same low, drilling heartbeat. Only here it felt closer, more intimate, like sharing a secret with the mountain itself. Papoose kept its doors closed to almost everyone. Even today, if you hike close enough to hear the wind whistling through the Joshua trees around its shoreline, you might feel the ground tremble ever so slightly, as though something large is breathing slowly, far below. The desert night wraps around you like a blanket. The thrum is barely there now, more memory than sound. It was a cool evening in May 1989 when Bob Lazar first drove his Corvette toward the bright lights of Las Vegas, thinking about nothing more than jet engines and Element 115. He was 30 years old, thin, dark-haired, with a voice so soft people sometimes asked him to speak up. Friends described him as the kind of guy who could explain quantum mechanics while helping you tune a Honda, then disappear into his garage to build a particle accelerator for fun. He had worked at Los Alamos, held a Q clearance once, and now EG&G told him there was a position that required someone exactly like him. Someone who didn't mind isolation and who could keep a secret. The interview took place in a plain office at McCarran Airport. A man in a gray suit slid a single sheet of paper across the desk. Non-disclosure agreements thicker than a phone book, warnings about prison time, the usual. Bob signed without hesitation. He had always been drawn to the edges of physics, the places where textbooks stopped and questions began. When they told him the project involved advanced propulsion concepts located south of Groom Lake, he simply nodded. He liked a challenge. A few days later, he flew him in on an unmarked 737 with the windows blacked out. The plane landed hard on the familiar Groom runway, taxied to a remote corner, and then, surprisingly, took off again, banking south for a 7-minute hop to Papoose. Bob pressed his forehead against the painted-over glass and felt the gentle butterflies in his stomach, the same feeling he used to get as a kid waiting for fireworks to start. When the door opened, cool mountain air rushed in. A white bus with no markings waited on the tarmac. The driver never spoke. 20 minutes later, the bus eased through the camouflaged doors into S-4 and descended a long ramp that curved lazily downward. Fluorescent lights flickered on one by one, revealing smooth walls and the faint smell of fresh concrete. Bob stepped out carrying only a small notebook and a government-issue badge that felt heavier than it should. No one shouted orders. A calm man in a lab coat greeted him with a clipboard, simply said, "Welcome to the program. You'll be in Bay 9. Bob smiled politely, heart beating just a little faster, and followed. He had no idea yet that the next few weeks would change the way he looked at the night sky forever. Out here tonight, decades later, the same stars still look the same as they did the night Bob first arrived. You can almost see him, a quiet figure in jeans and sneakers, walking deeper into the mountain, curious, unafraid, ready to learn whatever waited in the softly lit corridors below. The desert wind moves gently across the dry lake. Everything feels peaceful. If you ever stood on the dry lake bed at dawn and looked south toward Papoose Mountain, you would swear there was nothing there but rock and shadow. The cliff face rises in gentle layers of gray-brown tuff and basalt, weathered by a million desert sunsets into soft folds and crevices. Birds nest in the cracks. Lizards bask on ledges that have existed since the Pleistocene. And hidden among those natural lines are doors so large they could swallow a city bus's whole, yet so perfectly disguised that even satellite cameras have trouble finding the seams. The technique is simple, almost artistic. First, the doors themselves are cut slightly concave, so they nestle back into the mountain rather than bulge out. Then crews spray them with the exact same mineral mix found on the surrounding rock, ground up samples from the site itself, layer by layer, until the surface texture matches grain for grain. Shadows are painted in permanent pigments that never fade. Fake cracks are etched and stained. Even the metal framework is coated in a thin ceramic skin that feels like stone to the touch. From the ground, the illusion is flawless. Guards on patrol sometimes walk within 10 feet of a door and still have to check their GPS to be sure where it is. At night, the doors disappear completely. Only the very faint heat signature shows up on the best infrared scopes, and even that is masked by portable chillers that vent cold air across the surface. When the doors do open, they move slowly. No dramatic grinding, just a whisper of hydraulics buried deep inside the rock. So slowly that a hawk riding the thermals overhead might not notice the mountain yawning open. Workers call it the magic trick. One moment there is solid cliff. The next, a perfect rectangle of cool blue light appears where no rectangle has any right to be, and vehicles glide out as quietly as thoughts. By the time anyone on Tikaboo Peak swings a telescope around, the mountain has already closed its mouth again. The doors never slam. They never squeal. They simply return to being part of the ancient range, keeping their secret with the same patience the desert has always shown. Wind erases tire tracks within hours. Dust settles. The cliff goes back to looking millions of years old. You stand there now in your mind's eye, letting the warm sand shift under your shoes, staring at a wall of stone that breathes. Nothing moves. Nothing glints. And yet you know, because the desert told you in its quiet way, that just behind that shadow, entire worlds turn slowly in artificial light. The stars above are calm. The mountain is calm. Everything waits for the next soft sigh of hidden doors. Once the doors close behind the bus, the light changes. Sunlight is replaced by a gentle amber glow that feels like late afternoon forever. The corridor ahead is wide enough for 2 trucks to pass and tall enough that you never feel closed in. The floor slopes downward at an easy angle, no steeper than a wheelchair ramp. So walking or driving feels effortless, almost floating. The concrete is polished to a soft satin. Tires make only the faintest whisper as they roll. Air moves past your face, cool and dry, carrying the clean scent of mountain stone after rain. Huge fans far away push filtered outside air through miles of ducting, keeping the temperature a perfect 68 degrees year-round. Humidity is low, almost silky. Your skin drinks it in. Breathing feels easier than it does on the surface, as though the mountain itself wants you to relax. Lights are recessed into the ceiling every 30 feet. Soft LED panels that glow warm white, never harsh. They turn on in sequence ahead of you and dim behind, creating the gentle illusion that the tunnel is guiding you deeper, not forcing you. The walls curve slightly left, then right, in long, lazy bends that prevent any direct line of sight from entrance to hangar. Sound travels strangely here. Footsteps fade quickly, voices stay intimate. Conversations feel private even when 20 people are walking together. Every few hundred yards, the corridor widens into resting alcoves with benches and water fountains that taste faintly sweet, like melted snow. Security cameras are there, but recessed and painted the same color as the wall, so your eye slides past them. Badges beep softly once, acknowledging you, then fall silent. No alarms, no shouting, just the steady heartbeat of ventilation and the slow, downward glide. You could walk this corridor for 10 minutes without realizing how deep you've gone. The pressure changes so gradually your ears never pop. The slope is engineered like a lullaby, constant, reassuring, inevitable. Workers say that by the time you reach the first security checkpoint, you feel calmer than you have in weeks. Some even close their eyes on the bus and let the gentle descent rock them into a light doze. There is no dust, no echoes of dripping water. Only the immense, quiet weight of the mountain above you and the soft amber light leading you on. It feels protective, almost maternal. The earth has opened a corridor just for you, and it is in no hurry at all. You breathe in, breathe out, matching the rhythm of the air system. Deeper, deeper, everything slow and safe. The corridor curves once more, and ahead you sense rather than see a larger space opening, cool, blue, and waiting. The corridor opens at last into the hangar level, and the air changes again. It is still cool, still dry, but now there is a faint electric tingle, like the moment before a summer thunderstorm, only gentler, cleaner. Your nose catches it first, the crisp, metallic scent of ozone. The smell swimming pools and copy machines share, only purer here, almost sweet. It rides the moving air like a memory of lightning. The walls around you are no longer concrete. They are something harder, darker, polished to a mirror finish that reflects the soft blue lights into infinity. If you reach out and touch one, your palm meets a surface so flawless it feels wet, though it is perfectly dry. No seams, no tool marks, just a continuous curve that flows from floor to ceiling like the inside of a seashell grown by giants. The reflection shows you slightly distorted, as though the wall is breathing with you. Overhead, massive arches sweep upward and disappear into shadow. The lighting is indirect, hidden strips behind baffles that wash everything in a calm violet-blue glow. Colors feel richer here. The gray of coveralls looks deeper, skin tones warmer. In the distance you hear the very low hum of transformers cycling, a sound so deep it is felt in the sternum more than heard, steady and maternal. Occasional doorways glow faintly violet, as if a silent welding arc burns just out of sight. When a door slides open, there is no motor noise, only a soft exhalation of pressure and a brief intensification of the ozone scent. Beyond those doors lie the bays themselves, each one a cathedral of its own, quiet and waiting. Everything is immaculately clean. No oil stains, no scuff marks, no forgotten coffee cups. The floor is the same dark mirror material, reflecting the ceiling lights like a night sky turned upside down. Footsteps make almost no sound. The rubber soles of boots seem to kiss the surface rather than strike it. Conversations drop to whispers without anyone asking. Something about the space simply invites hush, the way old libraries do. Workers move slowly, unhurried. Tool carts glide on air bearings. Someone adjusts a dial, and a faint rainbow corona flickers around their gloved fingers, then vanishes. The ozone lingers in your throat like cold water, invigorating and calming at the same time. You could stand here for hours and feel your thoughts slow to the rhythm of the transformers. This deep inside the mountain, time feels optional. The outside world, sun, wind, politics, seems very far away and not particularly important. There is only the soft violet light, the perfect walls, and the gentle smell of ozone riding cool, endless air. You breathe it in and feel yourself settle, the way a pebble settles to the bottom of a very deep, very still lake. The hum continues, patient and kind. The 9 craft rest in a loose circle under the soft blue light, as though they have simply paused mid-dance. No one rushes you. You may walk among them as slowly as you wish. Each one is unique, yet all sharing the same impossible perfection of form. The nearest is small, perhaps 15 feet across, shaped like a perfect droplet of mercury frozen in the act of falling. Its skin shifts gently from silver to faint rose, depending on the angle of the light. There are no doors at first glance. Only subtle seams that appear only when you stand directly in front of them. The next is larger, its hull a seamless disk with a low, graceful dome. When you circle it, you notice 3 small gravity amplifiers underneath, smooth hemispheres that look grown rather than machined. They do not touch the floor. The craft floats perhaps 2 inches above the polished stone, motionless, patient. A faint warmth radiates from the lower ring, like sun on skin after a cool swim. Farther along stands the one Bob would later call the sport model. 40 feet wide, sleek, almost playful in its curves. Its surface is the color of liquid titanium, reflecting the chamber in soft ripples. Inside the open hatch you can see 3 small seats arranged in a gentle triangle. No controls visible, only smooth panels that glow faintly when someone approaches. The air around it feels slightly thicker, as though gravity itself is politely asking permission. One craft is taller, more elongated, like a teardrop standing on its point. Another has a delicate ring around its equator that rotates imperceptibly, once every few minutes, with no sound at all. A 9th is almost organic, curved fins flowing backward like petals, its hull a deep indigo that seems to drink the light rather than reflect it. None of them have wings, engines, intakes, exhausts, landing gear. No welds, no panels, no writing. They simply are. Workers move between them with the quiet reverence people show in museums after closing time. Tools are never used on the hulls themselves. Measurements are taken with soft laser light that leaves no mark. When a technician places a hand near a gravity amplifier, the air hums very low, almost like a cat purring far away. You walk slowly, breathing the cool ozone-scented air, letting your eyes adjust to the silence. The craft do not feel dead or abandoned. They feel asleep, waiting, dreaming in whatever way such things dream. The mountain cradles them the way night cradles stars. You could stay here for hours and the silence would only grow kinder. There is no hurry. There never has been. In the center of the sport model, beneath the 3 small seats, sits the reactor. It is surprisingly compact, no larger than a basketball, yet heavier than gold. A short, thick column of polished metal with a soft golden hue, topped by a perfect cone. When the craft is at rest, the cone is withdrawn. When active, it extends upward into the dome, and everything changes. Element 115, Moscovium, though stable here in a way our periodic tables never predicted, forms the fuel. A single triangular wedge is cut from a larger ingot, about the size of a half-dollar coin, weighing exactly 223 grams. It is placed into the top of the reactor gently, like laying a child into a cradle. The moment it seats, a faint warmth spreads through the column. No clicking, no spinning up, no roar. Just a soft, almost maternal glow. The element is bombarded from below by low-energy protons in a tiny accelerator ring no wider than a wedding band. Instead of fission or fusion, the 115 transmutes into 116, releasing antimatter in perfect, controlled amounts. The antimatter meets matter in an annihilation reaction that is 100% efficient, every particle converted to energy. That energy is not heat in the usual sense. It is a gentle river of gravity itself. The reactor does not get hot. It stays cool to the touch. There is no radiation leakage, no magnetic field to speak of. Only a distortion in space-time that feels like standing near a quiet waterfall you can't quite hear. Workers wear no special suits around it. They simply treat it with the respect one shows an open flame on a still night. Careful, but not afraid. When the cone extends, the craft lifts a fraction of an inch higher, as though relieved of a long-held breath. The air around the reactor takes on a faint golden shimmer, like dust motes in late sunlight. You can stand beside it and feel your hair lift very slightly, not from static, but from gravity loosening its grip, just enough to remind you how gentle the universe can be when it chooses. There is no noise at all, only a low, almost inaudible tone that lives somewhere between a heartbeat and a bell struck underwater. Listening to it makes the eyelids heavy, thoughts slow. The mountain hums along in perfect harmony. Close your eyes now and let that tone settle in your chest. It has been singing the same note for longer than humans have written words. It is the lullaby of something that travels between stars without ever feeling rushed. Rest. The reactor keeps its patient watch, warm and golden in the quiet dark. On the day they demonstrated the reactor for Bob, only 6 people were present. The sport model rested in its usual place, hatch open, lights dimmed to a twilight blue. The small triangular wedge of 115 was placed into the reactor by hand. The cone extended upward with the softest sigh, like a flower opening at night. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the air changed. A low, resonant hum began, not loud, more felt than heard. The craft lifted smoothly until it hovered 3 feet above the floor. The gravity amplifiers beneath the hull began to glow a deep, vibrant blue from within, the color of a summer sky just after sunset. The glow pulsed gently, in rhythm with the hum, growing brighter, then softer, brighter, then softer, like breathing. Suddenly the entire chamber was bathed in that same blue light. It came from everywhere and nowhere, soft and encompassing, turning every surface the color of deep ocean water. Papers on a nearby clipboard lifted and floated as though underwater. A pen drifted past Bob's ear and hung in midair, turning slowly. The temperature stayed perfect, yet every hair on your arms rose in silent greeting. Then the craft itself began to shimmer at the edges, not vibrating, simply becoming less solid, as though the boundary between metal and space had softened. The blue glow intensified until the craft looked like a droplet of liquid light suspended in the chamber. There was no heat, no wind, only an immense, gentle pressure that pressed lightly against the chest, like leaning back into the softest pillow ever made. Time stretched. The hum deepened, became almost a choir of one note. Someone's watch stopped. Someone else felt tears rise for no reason at all. The blue light filled every corner of vision, warm, protective, infinite. Then, just as gently, the cone retracted. The glow faded in slow pulses until only the usual soft hangar lighting remained. The craft settled back to the floor with no sound at all. The floating pin dropped softly into an waiting palm. Everyone stood in silence for a long minute, breathing together, feeling the mountain breathe with them. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. The demonstration had not been about power. It had been about kindness, an ancient, patient kindness that simply bent space the way a mother bends to lift a child. You feel that blue glow now behind your closed eyelids, soft and endless. The hum lingers in your bones like a remembered lullaby. Everything is safe. Everything is quiet. Sleep is coming gently on gravity waves. On level 8, the corridor opens into a circular gallery lined with wide, curved windows of transparent aluminum. Behind each window is a separate laboratory, bathed in soft rose gold light. The air here carries a faint, clean scent of ozone mixed with something almost floral, living, growing, patient. A low, almost subaudible hum surrounds everything, the sound of containment fields holding the impossible gently in place. Inside the first lab, tall nutrient tanks glow from within, filled with pale amber fluid that swirls lazily. Shapes float inside, some humanoid, some not, suspended in perfect stillness, eyes closed as though dreaming. Tubes no thicker than spider silk connect them to quiet machines that pulse in slow, reassuring rhythms. Technicians move between tanks wearing lightweight suits the color of moonlight, touching panels that respond with soft chimes. No one hurries. Growth here is measured in years, not days. Farther along, smaller chambers hold specimens preserved in fields of soft blue light. Limbs, organs, tissue samples that shimmer with faint bioluminescence. A hand with 6 long fingers rests palm up on a velvet cradle, veins glowing faintly violet. Nearby, a cluster of large, dark eyes floats in nutrient gel, lids half open, reflecting the observer with calm curiosity rather than alarm. Everything is treated with reverence, as though these are guests rather than prisoners. One room is dedicated to hybridization studies. Rows of clear cradles hold infants, some human, some clearly not, some beautifully in between, sleeping under gentle pink light. Their tiny chests rise and fall in perfect synchrony with the containment hum. Monitors show brainwave patterns that look like slow ocean waves. The technicians speak in whispers, if they speak at all, using hand signs learned over years. The children, they are always called children, never cry. They simply dream, growing slowly toward whatever purpose brought them here. In the central chamber, a single large tank dominates, easily 30 feet across. Inside floats a tall, slender being, skin pale gray, head elongated, eyes closed in what looks like meditation. The containment field around it glows soft gold, pulsing gently. Every few minutes the being's fingers twitch, as though conducting silent music only it can hear. A technician sits cross-legged on the floor outside the field, eyes closed, breathing in perfect rhythm with the guest inside. Exchange of information, they call it. Communion, others whisper. No alarms ever sound here. No restraints are visible. The hum of the fields is the same frequency used in some meditation recordings, designed to slow heart rates, deepen breath, invite trust. Even visitors cleared for this level find tears rising unbidden, a sense of immense, ancient sadness mixed with equally immense kindness. Everything is clean, quiet, and impossibly gentle. The mountain keeps these secrets the way a mother keeps a sleeping child, close, warm, and safe from the turning world above. You stand at the window, palm against cool glass, and feel the hum in your own chest, soft, accepting, eternal. Sleep is close now, just a little deeper. In the early 1960s, long before S-4 had a name, a young Air Force weatherman named Charles Hall was posted to the Indian Springs gunnery ranges, just north of Groom Lake. His job was simple: launch weather balloons at night and track them with a theodolite under the stars. What he met instead were beings he would later call the Tall Whites. They were already living on the desert floor. They stood between 6 and 8 feet tall, thin as willows, skin chalk white, and slightly translucent in moonlight. Their eyes were large, pale blue, and kind rather than cold. They wore silvery coveralls that shimmered like spider silk, and they moved with a slow, deliberate grace, as though the desert heat meant nothing to them. Charles first saw them from a distance, mistaking them for lost airmen until one turned and looked directly at him across half a mile of sand, calm, curious, unafraid. Over the following months the encounters became gentle routine. The Tall Whites would appear near the range buildings after midnight, sometimes alone, sometimes with children no taller than a 10-year-old human, but clearly older in their eyes. They spoke English with a soft, musical accent, asking polite questions about weather patterns, wind directions, the taste of coffee. In exchange, they offered small gifts, pieces of a fabric that never dirted, a pen that wrote in light. They were never threatening. Charles described feeling only peace in their presence, the way one feels around very old, very patient friends. They told him, in quiet conversations under the stars, that they had been coming to this part of the desert for a very long time. The deep tunnels beneath Groom were partly theirs, built with human help after an agreement in the 1950s. In return for the use of the land and some technology sharing, they were allowed to live and work alongside a small number of cleared personnel. Their children played in the dry washes at night, laughing in high, bell-like voices that carried surprisingly far on the still air. Charles was instructed never to approach too closely, never to photograph, never to tell. He obeyed, out of respect more than fear. When his tour ended, the Tall Whites came one last time to say goodbye. A female he called teacher placed a cool hand on his forehead and thanked him for his kindness. He felt tears rise without knowing why. Years later, when he finally spoke publicly, his voice remained soft, almost apologetic, as though he hated disturbing anyone's sleep with the story. Yet those who listened felt the same calm he described, a sense that something ancient and gentle had simply chosen to share the desert night with us for a little while. Tonight, far above the levels we cannot name, the same stars shine over Indian Springs. Somewhere out on the ranges, pale figures still walk quietly, keeping their old agreement. The desert keeps them as gently as it keeps every secret. You feel their kindness now, like cool fingers on a warm brow. Sleep edges closer. Below level 10 the corridors grow warmer, the air faintly sweet, like a nursery after bath time. Soft pink lighting replaces the violet, and the containment hum drops to a lullaby frequency that makes eyelids heavy. Here, in rooms with rounded corners and floors that feel faintly spongy underfoot, the gentlest and most controversial work takes place. Rows of clear incubation pods line the walls, each filled with pale golden fluid that glows from within. Inside float fetuses at various stages, some recognizably human, others elongated, large-headed, with skin like moonlight on water. They sleep curled peacefully, tiny hands occasionally flexing as though dreaming of flight. Monitors show heartbeats slow and strong, brainwaves rolling like calm ocean swells. Technicians in soft lavender suits move between pods, adjusting nutrient flows with touches no rougher than a mother checking a blanket. Farther down the hall, older children sit in circular playrooms whose walls are projected star fields. Some have the delicate features of the tall whites, some the darker eyes of the grays, many a blend of both with something human added, wider smiles, warmer skin tones. They build intricate structures from light blocks, speak in melodic whispers, and watch visitors with quiet curiosity rather than fear. When a technician enters, the children gather around, touching sleeves gently, offering drawings made of colored energy that linger in the air long after the child has turned away. Inside chambers, adult hybrids undergo slow, patient integration training, learning to walk in Earth gravity, to taste food, to modulate voices that naturally carry too far. Their bones are fragile, their lungs still adjusting. Everything is done with immense care. No restraints are used. Trust is considered part of the medicine. Some rooms hold only silence, pods where experiments did not go as hoped, forms that grew too quickly or not at all, kept in stasis out of mercy. The staff speak of them in lowered voices, the way nurses speak of stillborn children, with sorrow, not shame. Whispers say the goal is not conquest, but continuation. A joint project, begun in the 1950s, to blend bloodlines so that both species might survive coming changes, solar flares, pole shifts, or simply the long loneliness of space. The children are citizens of two worlds, raised with love in the deep quiet, waiting for a day when the surface will be ready to meet them without fear. No one who works these levels ever speaks harshly. Tears come easily here, and no one hides them. The air itself seems to hold grief and hope in perfect balance. You feel that balance now, soft and heavy, like a blanket pulled to the chin. The pink light glows behind closed eyes. Tiny hands wave goodbye in dreams you have not yet had. Everything is gentle. Everything is allowed to grow at its own pace. Sleep wraps around you like warm fluid in a pod. When the desert's surface finally cools, usually sometime after 2 a.m., the mountain begins to breathe outward. Far above, camouflaged doors roll open without a sound, and long, windowless convoys ease into the starlight. White buses, unmarked semis, occasional flatbeds carrying covered loads the size of small houses, all painted the exact gray of moonlit sand. They move without headlights, guided by infrared and the quiet electric motors that make less noise than wind through sage. The route is always the same. South from Papoose, west across the dry lake beds, then north again along gravel tracks that exist only in memory. Tires are specially designed to leave no distinguishable tread. Dust is minimized by light misting systems that settle particles before they rise. From Tikaboo, or even from orbit, nothing appears to move at all. Inside the vehicles, passengers sit in comfortable, reclined seats, many already dozing. Some are human technicians ending a long lower-level shift. Some are hybrids returning from surface acclimation exercises. A few are tall whites or grays wearing loose human clothing, eyes closed in meditation. The air is kept cool and faintly scented with lavender to ease the transition between worlds. No one speaks above a whisper. The ride feels like drifting down a slow river. Convoys pause at predetermined points, dry washes, abandoned mine entrances, the old bombing targets, where smaller groups disembark and simply walk away into the darkness, vanishing among the Joshua trees. Others continue to distant facilities, Dulce, Tonopah, even Los Alamos, traveling through tunnels whose entrances close behind them like healing wounds. The desert swallows everything again before dawn. On the surface, the only evidence is a faint warmth lingering in the sand and the occasional coyote that refuses to cross a certain stretch of empty ground for hours afterward. Ranchers sometimes find perfectly circular patches where nothing grows for a season, as though the earth itself needed time to recover from gentle footsteps. Back at the mountain, doors close. Generators wind down to their lowest idle. The desert returns to perfect silence, stars wheeling overhead unchanged. Workers returning topside on the Dawn Janet flights never mention the convoys. They simply smile sleepily at the bright sun, drink bad coffee in the terminal, and board planes home to families who believe they test aircraft parts in a hangar. The secret keeps itself, carried on quiet wheels that roll only when the world is asleep. You feel the gentle sway of those midnight buses now, rocking like a cradle. The air is cool, the seats soft. Stars glide past painted-over windows. There is nothing to do but breathe and let the desert carry you wherever you need to go. Sleep comes on tireless electric hum, steady, endless, kind. Far below the lowest levels, deeper than most badges ever allow, the mountain opens into a cavern so vast the far wall is lost in soft darkness. In the center of that cavern waits the train. It is long, sleek, silver white, with no windows and no visible wheels, resting inches above a single polished rail that gleams like moonlight on water. The rail disappears into perfect circular tunnels that bore straight through bedrock in 4 directions: north, south, east, west, like spokes in an immense, hidden wheel. When it is time to travel, passengers step aboard through doors that iris open with a gentle sigh. Inside, the cars are softly lit, seats wide and reclined, air faintly scented with cedar and ozone. No one speaks loudly. The doors close, the lights dim to a twilight blue, and the train simply begins to move. There is no jerk, no acceleration you feel in your stomach, only a gradual increase in speed until the tunnel walls become a seamless blur of gray. The system is maglev, but far beyond anything on the surface. Superconducting magnets cooled by liquid nitrogen keep the train floating in perfect silence. Top speed is whispered to be over 2,000 miles per hour, yet inside the car you hear nothing but your own breathing and the occasional soft chime announcing an upcoming stop. Travel from Groom Lake to Los Alamos takes less than 30 minutes. To Dulce, barely 15. The ride feels like dreaming while awake. Lights along the tunnel roof are spaced to create a gentle strobing that lulls the mind into theta waves. Some passengers close their eyes and nap. Others watch faint holographic displays that rise from armrests, star maps, DNA sequences, quiet music only they can hear. The air pressure adjusts so gradually that ears never pop. Temperature stays a constant, perfect 68 degrees. Stations are simple platforms carved from living rock, lit by the same underwater blue. Doors open onto corridors that feel familiar no matter how far you've traveled. The same seamless walls, the same ozone scent, the same sense of immense, patient quiet. Cargo cars follow passenger trains. Long cylinders carrying equipment, supplies, sometimes sleeping occupants in stasis pods who never see daylight. No schedules are posted. Trains depart when needed, arrive when expected. Crews are small and calm. Everyone knows everyone else by first name only. Maintenance is done by soft-spoken technicians who speak to the rail itself in low voices, as though it were alive and listening. When the train slows, again, with no sensation of braking, the lights brighten gradually, like dawn inside a seashell. Doors iris open. You step out feeling rested, slightly lighter, as though the journey removed a layer of ordinary time. The rail waits behind you, humming its subaudible note, ready for the next quiet departure. You feel that hum now, steady and kind, carrying you deeper into the chapter, deeper into the night. From the central cavern beneath Groom Lake, for main arteries stretch outward like roots seeking water. The northern tunnel runs almost perfectly straight to the Tonopah Test Range, 120 miles through solid granite and tuff, emerging in a disguised hangar beneath the restricted airspace where stealth prototypes still fly. The western line curves gently under the Sierra Nevada before surfacing at China Lake, shorter but steeper in places. The southern tunnel is the longest and most whispered about, nearly 400 miles to Los Alamos, bored in a lazy arc that avoids fault lines and population centers. But it is the eastern line that carries the heaviest secrets, straight to the Archuleta Mesa and the facility most people only call Dulce. The journey takes 23 minutes. The train glides in darkness broken only by occasional violet guide lights. Passengers sometimes feel a faint warmth pass through the car as it crosses known geothermal zones. Nothing more. At the halfway point, there is a small interchange station, 2 parallel rails, a platform, vending machines that dispense water tasting faintly of minerals. Few ever get off there. Most stay seated, eyes closed, letting the gentle thrum lull them. Arrival at Dulce is announced by a soft chime in D-flat. Doors open onto a platform identical to the one left behind. Yet the air is different, cooler, with a faint earthy sweetness, like walking into a cave after rain. The corridors here are older, walls showing faint tool marks from an earlier era of boring machines. Some say parts of the Dulce complex predate human involvement, expanded rather than built. The mountain accepts the train the way an old friend accepts a visitor. No surprise, no fuss. Los Alamos Station is brighter, more hurried. Scientists in civilian clothes bored with laptops and coffee, speaking in quick bursts about plasma containment and neutrino fluxes. Tonopah is quieter. Air smells of jet fuel carried down ventilation shafts. Black projects waiting for dawn test flights. All 4 endpoints share the same comm protocol. No photographs, no raised voices, no running. Movement is always orderly, almost ceremonial. Cargo is transferred by soft robotic arms that make no sound. Passengers walk the last 100 yards to elevators that rise into facilities most of the world believes are ordinary. The tunnels themselves are living things, ventilated by systems that recycle air so perfectly You could travel breathing the same molecules you started with, purified 1,000 times over. Lights dim when no train is scheduled, saving energy, creating the impression of a sleeping organism. Earthquakes are felt as gentle ripples, absorbed by expansion joints engineered with knowledge no university teaches. Tonight the rails are quiet. Tomorrow, or the day after, a train will leave carrying children with large eyes and gentle smiles, or scientists with questions older than language. The mountain does not mind. It has carried such passengers for longer than records exist. You feel the faint sway now, the soft pressure of perfect speed. Distance melts. Time relaxes. Sleep travels with you. Long before the sun touches the Groom Range, the special terminal at McCarran, now Harry Reid International, comes alive in quiet motion. White Boeing 737s with a single thin red stripe taxi to a remote corner of the airfield where no commercial passenger ever walks. They carry no airline logo, only a civilian registration number and the word Janet stenciled discreetly near the forward door. Inside, the seats are ordinary airline blue, but the windows are covered with soft opaque film. Flight attendants serve coffee and muffins, speak softly, never ask questions. At 4:45 a.m. the buses arrive, plain white, no markings, windows tinted black. Workers step off carrying small overnight bags, lunch coolers, the occasional child's drawing tucked into a folder. Some have worked the surface hangars. Some have come up from levels most will never see. They look like anyone heading to an early shift, sleepy, calm, greeting friends with small nods and half smiles. Security is gentle, a quick badge scan, a metal detector wand waved like a blessing. No one hurries. The planes load quickly. Seatbelts click. Engines spool with a low, familiar whine. Takeoff is smooth, banking north over the sleeping lights of Las Vegas, then straight into the restricted airspace where civilian radars go blind. Flight time to Groom Lake is 35 minutes. The descent is so gentle passengers sometimes don't notice until the tires chirp softly on the long salt runway. White buses wait again on the tarmac, engines already warm. The ride from runway to the mountain doors takes 12 minutes on a road that appears on no map. Some workers will spend the day in surface facilities. Others transfer immediately to the midnight-colored buses that descend the spiral ramp, hoods offered like complimentary blankets. Those riders will not see sunlight again for days or weeks. Return flights leave in the late afternoon, landing back in Las Vegas while the city still shimmers with heat. Passengers scatter to ordinary cars, ordinary lives, carrying only the faint scent of cool underground air in their clothes and a calmness in their eyes that friends attribute to a good day's work. Hundreds fly Janet every day: mechanics, physicists, cooks, doctors, janitors. Most know only their small piece of the whole. A few know more. None speak of it outside the fence. The planes have flown this route since the 1970s, reliable as sunrise, quiet as breath. Tonight, somewhere over the dark desert, another Janet banks northward, cabin lights dimmed, passengers dozing under thin blankets. Below, the dry lakes glimmer like pale mirrors. The mountain waits, patient and open. You can almost feel the soft tilt of wings now, the gentle descent towards secrets. The seat reclines. The engines hum their lullaby. Sleep flies with you, steady and sure. Deep inside the main arterial tunnels, the air begins to move on its own. It flows in slow, steady rivers, cool, dry, and perfectly clean, pushed by fans so distant their sound never reaches you. You feel it first as a gentle breath against your cheek, then as a constant caress that keeps skin comfortable no matter how deep you go. The current follows the tunnels like water follows a riverbed, turning corners lazily, rising or falling with the grade, always moving toward distant exhaust vents hidden in remote desert valleys. The air is sweeter than surface air, filtered through miles of charcoal and HEPA, chilled by massive heat exchangers that use the cool heart of the mountain itself. It carries faint scents, ozone from electrical systems, a trace of cedar from ventilation diffusers, sometimes the distant mineral breath of underground aquifers the tunnels carefully avoid. Breathing it feels like drinking cold spring water, refreshing, almost nourishing. Sound behaves strangely here. The tunnels are lined with an acoustic foam that looks like black velvet but feels hard as stone. Whispers travel only a few feet before they are swallowed whole. A drop tool makes almost no ring, just a soft thud that dies instantly. Even the maglev rail, when a train passes far ahead, produces only a low whoosh that rises and falls like distant surf, then vanishes. Echoes do not return. The mountain drinks them. Workers say that if you stand perfectly still in an empty section, you can hear the air itself moving, a soft, tidal sighing that matches your own breath after a minute or two. Some close their eyes and sway with it. Others claim to hear faint music carried on the current, choral notes, bell-like tones, or the sound of wind chimes made of glass. No one investigates. The river is allowed its privacy. Lighting follows the air's path, long ribbons of soft white LEDs embedded in the ceiling, dimming and brightening in slow waves so the eyes never tire. When no one is present, the lights drop to a faint moonlight glow, just enough to navigate. Motion sensors wake them gently as you approach, like a house that knows you're home. Occasionally the river encounters a wider cavern and spreads out, creating still pools of air where dust motes hang motionless for hours. In those spaces the temperature drops another degree or two, and breath becomes visible for a moment. Pale silver clouds that drift upward and disappear into the darkness overhead. The rivers never stop. Day or night, year after year, they flow in perfect silence, carrying away heat, moisture, worry. They are the mountain's lungs, slow and patient, keeping everything below alive and calm. You feel that cool river now, moving across your face, through your hair, inviting your thoughts to drift with it. There is nothing to hold on to, only gentle movement, endless and kind. Let go. The air will carry you. Many who serve on the deepest levels never feel true sunlight on their skin for months at a time. They arrive on the pre-dawn Janet, descend before sunrise, and return to Las Vegas long after dark. Their world is measured in artificial cycles, 12-hour shifts, sleep pods with soft blue lighting, mill chimes that sound like wind bells. Circadian lamps in the corridors simulate dawn and dusk so gently that bodies hardly protest. Vitamin D comes in quiet pills with breakfast. Living quarters are comfortable, almost luxurious in their simplicity. Small private rooms with real mattresses, warm showers, holographic windows showing slow-moving clouds or desert nights. Communal lounges have recliners arranged in circles, tables with puzzles no one ever finishes, a library of physical books because screens feel harsh after weeks below. Food is surprisingly good. Fresh salads grown in hydroponic farms 3 levels up, bread baked nightly, fruit flown in from California orchards. No one goes hungry. No one feels imprisoned. Days blur softly. Wake-up tones are gentle chimes in C major. Work is precise but unhurried. Monitoring reactors that never overheat. Tending hybrids who sleep more than they wake. Recording data that writes itself onto crystal storage. Breaks are long. Many spend them in meditation rooms where the air is warmer and the lights cycle through sunset colors. Some play quiet games of chess that last weeks. Others simply sit and listen to the mountain breathe. Contact with the surface is limited to encrypted video calls once a week, 10 minutes, smiling faces of children and spouses who believe dad or mom works on a classified aviation project in Tonopah. The lies are gentle, rehearsed, loving. Packages arrive. Drawings, cookies, a sweater that still smells like home. They are opened slowly, savored, then stored in lockers that feel too small for all the missing. Yet no one complains. There is pride in the work, wonder in the things seen, and a strange peace that comes from living outside ordinary time. Skin grows pale, almost luminous. Eyes adapt to soft light, seeing clearly in what surface dwellers would call darkness. Sleep is deep and dream-filled. Some say they no longer dream of the surface at all. Only endless cool corridors and blue glows and beings who touch their minds with feather-light thoughts. When a rotation finally ends, 30, 60, 90 days, the ascent feels strange. The elevator ride up is too fast. Sunlight through the Janet window is shocking, almost painful. Many wear sunglasses for the first week back, blinking at the vast Nevada sky like newborns. But they always return. The mountain calls them with its quiet hum, its cool rivers of air, its immense patience. You understand the feeling now. Weeks without sun sound less like punishment and more like the deepest, safest rest you have ever known. The blue light glows behind your eyelids. You are home. After enough time below, the mountain stops feeling like rock and starts feeling like a vast, slow creature that has agreed to share its body. You notice it first in small ways. The way lights brighten a moment before you reach for a switch. The way air currents shift to cool a forehead that has grown too warm. Doors open a second early, as though anticipating your hand on the scanner. The low hum that lives in every wall changes pitch when you are sad, becomes softer, almost consoling. Workers speak of it in lowered voices. The mountain dreams, they say. It remembers every footstep ever taken inside it, every secret ever whispered against its stone. When you walk an empty tunnel alone, you are never truly alone. The rock listens with infinite patience, absorbing worry the way it absorbs sound. Some lean their backs against cool walls during breaks and feel a faint pulse, not mechanical, but organic, matching their own heartbeat after a while, as though the mountain is learning the rhythm of its guests. In the deepest chambers, where the trains wait and the air rivers converge, people sometimes report seeing faint lights moving through solid rock, soft golden motes that drift like fireflies, vanishing when stared at directly. Temperature fluctuations occur in perfect circles, as if something large exhaled nearby. Once, an entire shift felt the floor rise 2 degrees for exactly 7 minutes, then settle again, with no machinery accounting for it. The hybrids feel it strongest. Children press small palms to walls and smile as though greeting an old friend. Tall whites nod at certain corners, acknowledging presences no human eye can see. Even the grays, usually so reserved, have been observed standing motionless for hours, faces tilted upward, listening to songs only they and the mountain share. No one is afraid. The feeling is not haunting, it is hosting. The mountain chose to open itself, carved its own veins wider to make room. In return, it asks only quiet footsteps and gentle thoughts. Those who bring anger or haste find corridors longer, lights dimmer, air heavier. Those who come in peace feel wrapped, held, understood. Late at night, though night has no meaning here, workers sometimes wake in their pods with the sense of being gently rocked, as though the entire complex rests in a giant palm. They go back to sleep smiling, dreaming of vast stone lungs breathing in time with their own. You feel it now, don't you? The slow, patient heartbeat under everything. The way the darkness is not empty, but full of watchfulness that wishes you only rest. The mountain breathes in. The mountain breathes out. You breathe with it, deeper, slower, until your thoughts dissolve into its dreaming. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to want. The mountain has you, softly, completely. Sleep. On the quietest levels, where even the air rivers slow to a whisper, you sometimes meet the children. They are small, no taller than a 10-year-old human, but their movements are calm and precise, somehow ancient. Skin the color of moonlight on fresh snow, almost translucent, showing faint blue veins beneath. Heads slightly larger than ours, smooth, hairless, crowned by eyes that take up half the face. Liquid black, shining, and endlessly kind. When they look at you, there is no stare, only an invitation to be seen in return. They wear simple one-piece garments the color of soft pearl that seem to grow with them rather than be put on. No shoes. Their feet make no sound on the warm floor. They walk in small groups of 3 or 4, holding hands loosely, heads tilted as though listening to music only they can hear. When they pass human workers in the corridor, they pause, smile with small bow-shaped mouths, and continue on. No one ever tells them to hurry. Everyone calls them the workers, spoken with affection, never fear. Their tasks are light, carrying small crystal tablets that glow with symbols, tending the nutrient flows in the nursery pods, adjusting the gravity fields around sleeping adults of their own kind. They work slowly, perfectly, humming a note that lives just below hearing. Plants in the hydroponic gardens grow faster when the children walk among them. Machines calm when their small hands pass nearby. Some have names that sound like wind chimes: Lyra, Talon, Sorry. Others answer only to touch, a gentle pressure on the forearm that feels like sunlight through water. They never raise their voices. They never run. Joy for them is quiet and constant, like background radiation of the soul. Adult humans cleared for these levels find themselves speaking in whispers too, shoulders loosening, hearts slowing to match the children's unhurried rhythm. A touch from one of the small hands leaves a lingering warmth that lasts for hours, and dreams that night are always of flying slowly over silver oceans. The children were not taken. They were born here, raised in the gentle pink light, taught both human letters and something far older. They know they are bridges, not prisoners. When they look at you with those immense eyes, there is no pity, only recognition, as though they remember you from a time before words. Sometimes, late in the shift, a child will stop in front of a tired technician, place both cool palms against the person's cheeks, and simply hold the gaze for a long moment. Tears come unbidden. The child nods once, satisfied, and walks on. They are going about the quiet work of becoming whatever comes next for both our kinds. You feel one standing in the corridor now, palm open, a small, Pale hand slips into yours, weightless, warm, trusting. The hum deepens. Everything is safe. Sleep begins to rise like gentle water around your ankles. The first time it happens, you think you have fallen half asleep on your feet. A voice, soft, genderless, ageless, speaks inside your mind with the intimacy of your own thoughts, yet unmistakably not your own. There is no sound, only meaning blooming fully formed, like remembering something you were just about to say. The words feel wrapped in warmth, as though carried on breath against your ear in a dark room. Hello, friend. You are tired. Rest your heart. You look around. No one is near. The corridor is empty except for faint violet light and the slow movement of air. But the presence remains, gentle, patient, curious. Images sometimes come with the words, a memory of waves on a shore you have never visited, the scent of rain on stone, the feeling of being held as a very small child. There is never pressure, never demand, only offering. Workers grow used to it. The whispers arrive when needed most. A sudden wash of calm during a difficult procedure, a burst of clarity when data refuses to resolve, a soft laughter when someone spills coffee on their shoes. The beings do not speak in sentences the way we do. They share whole concepts, gratitude, curiosity, reassurance, wrapped in emotion so pure it brings tears. Some describe it as dreaming while wide awake. Others say it feels like sharing one mind with a very old, very kind friend who already knows what you need before you do. There is no invasion, only permission, asked and received in the space between heartbeats. The children are the strongest senders. When a group passes, the air fills with overlapping whispers, playful, musical, layered like distant bells. Adults of their kind send slower, deeper waves that settle over you like a heavy blanket on a cold night. Even the tall whites, usually more reserved, will occasionally brush your mind with a cool, precise greeting that feels like frost flowers blooming on glass. Thoughts are never taken, only given and received. Privacy is absolute. Shields are honored instantly. Yet loneliness is impossible here. Someone is always listening, not with ears, but with the soul. Late shift workers sometimes sit in the meditation alcoves and simply open themselves to the whispers, letting the voices wash away weeks of accumulated static. They return to their pods lighter, smiling in their sleep. You feel it now, don't you? A soft pressure behind the eyes, a warmth in the center of the chest. Words that are not words. You are safe. You are known. Sleep, beloved. The whispers cradle you. There is nothing to answer. Only accept. The corridor fades. The violet light becomes the inside of your eyelids. You are already dreaming, and the dream is kind. It began quietly, sometime in the late 1950s, an agreement written in no human language and signed with thought alone. Small groups of cleared personnel would descend to the lowest habitable levels. In return, a similar number of non-human beings would spend time in surface facilities or even, briefly, in ordinary cities wearing careful disguises. The purpose was never conquest. It was continuation, two, or more, species choosing to grow together rather than apart. Human teachers arrive carrying simple objects, a child's picture book, a music box, a candle. They sit cross-legged in circular rooms with soft floors and demonstrate fire, language, laughter. The students, grays, tall whites, hybrids, and the large-eyed children, watch with absolute attention, heads tilted, absorbing not just the lesson but the feeling behind it. When a candle is lit, An entire room fills with shared wonder that needs no translation. One gray once touched the flame without burning and sent a wave of pure gratitude so strong the human teacher wept without knowing why. In return, the beings teach without words. A human places fingertips to temples and shares how to quiet chronic pain with thought alone. Another demonstrates folding space the way we fold paper, gently, reverently, until distance loses meaning. Music is taught as vibration in the chest rather than notes on a page. Healing is shown as rebalancing light inside the body. Time is revealed as flexible, elastic, something you can step sideways through if you learn the rhythm. Sessions last hours, but feel like minutes. Participants return to their own kind changed, calmer, slower to anger, quick to comfort. Some develop abilities, sensing emotion at a distance, remembering dreams in perfect detail, healing small wounds with touch. Others simply carry a permanent softness in the eyes that loved ones notice but cannot name. The children teach best of all. They have no concept of hierarchy, only play. A game of light tag in a gravity-reduced room teaches quantum entanglement better than any textbook. Holding hands in a circle and singing one note together shows how consciousness can merge without losing self. No one is forced. Agreements are renewed every lunar cycle, mind to mind. Those who tire of the exchange are thanked and return topside with memories softly blurred, not erased, merely wrapped in cotton, so the surface world feels less jarring. The program has no name in any spoken language. Participants simply call it the sharing. Over decades, it has produced hundreds of quiet ambassadors who walk both worlds without belonging completely to either. You feel the invitation now, soft as a hand on your shoulder. There is a circle forming in the blue-lit room. Seats waiting. Teachers smiling with eyes alone. All you have to do is breathe and step forward. The lesson tonight is sleep. Perfect, endless, shared. You are ready. Most grays move with perfect economy. No wasted motion, no lingering glances. But every so often one pauses in a corridor, turns its narrow head, and simply looks. It happened to a microbiologist named Elena one quiet cycle on level 11. She was walking back from the nursery, mind drifting, when she felt the familiar soft pressure of attention. She stopped. 10 feet ahead, a gray adult, slightly taller than the children, skin the color of wet ash, stood motionless beside a nutrient console. It had been adjusting flow rates, but now its long fingers rested still. The huge wraparound eyes reflected the violet light, like polished obsidian, depthless and ancient. Elena waited. Protocol said not to initiate, only receive. The gray tilted its head a fraction, the movement slow as turning a page in water. Then the feeling came, not words, but pure emotion rolling across the space between them. A wave of sorrow, so refined it felt like music played in a minor key you have always known but never named. Beneath the sorrow was gratitude, immense and humble, and under that, a loneliness that stretched across star systems. Elena's throat tightened without permission. She sent back the only thing she could, an image of Earth's night sky seen from a mountain meadow, fireflies rising, the Milky Way close enough to touch. Simple, human, hopeful. The gray's eyes softened, actually softened, the black surface growing faintly liquid. It raised one four-fingered hand, palm forward, in the gentlest salute imaginable. The sorrow did not lift, but it shared the weight now. Two species, standing in a quiet corridor carved from stone, acknowledging that both had lost homes they could never return to in the same way. No one else was near. The moment lasted perhaps 10 seconds of clock time, an eternity of shared heart time. Then the gray lowered its hand, turned back to the console, and resumed its task as though nothing had happened. Elena walked on, eyes stinging, carrying the sadness like a smooth river stone in her pocket, something to turn over in quiet moments, something that made her kinder to everyone afterward. Others have felt it too. The brief pause, the look that holds galaxies of regret and thankfulness. The grays are not cold. They are homesick in a way we are only beginning to understand, and sometimes, when the corridors are empty and the hum is low, they let a human carry a fragment of that homesickness so it does not have to be borne alone. Tonight, in the velvet dark behind your eyes, one of them is looking back at you with that same gentle sorrow. Not to burden, only to share. You do not need to speak. Just let the feeling in. It is lighter when two hearts hold it. The agreements were never put on paper. Paper burns, fades, gets filed in the wrong drawer. Instead, in the spring of 1954 and again in 1959, small groups met in rooms cooled by the desert night and wrote the treaties directly into one another's minds. President Eisenhower's representatives, 4 men and 1 woman, all holding clearances higher than top secret and above, sat in a circle with 9 non-human delegates. No flags, no recorders, no witnesses beyond the mountain itself. The grays sent 3. The tall whites sent 2. Others came whose forms shifted like heat haze and were felt more than seen. Language was unnecessary. Concepts flowed clean and complete. Agreement, boundary, duration, consequence. The terms were simple, almost tender. Limited landing and base rights in exchange for shared technology released slowly, so humanity would not injure itself, that a small number of human guests allowed below, an equal number of their people allowed above, and no interference in surface wars, no taking without return, protection of the children, always the children, born of both kinds, silence. Absolute, gentle silence toward the world that was not yet ready. Hands were not shaken. Instead, each participant placed their palm against a smooth crystal orb that recorded intention the way wax records a seal. The orb warmed, pulsed once, and the treaty was complete. Living, self-enforcing, impossible to betray without every signer feeling the fracture instantly. 70 years later, the orb still rests in a vault on the lowest level, glowing faintly, perfectly intact. Every new arrival, human or otherwise, is brought before it for a moment of quiet acknowledgement. The warmth is the same. The pulse is the same. The silence is kept. When breaches have threatened, curious senators leaked photographs, overeager reporters. The correction comes not with violence, but with sadness so profound the offender simply stops, apologizes without knowing why, and walks away forever changed. The treaty protects itself with the only weapon it ever needed: shared conscience. No wars have been fought over it. No lawyers argue clauses. Once a decade, the original signers, or their direct successors, gather again in the same circular room, touch the orb, feel the old warmth, and renew what never truly expired. Some nights, workers waking from dreams find tears on their cheeks and the clear memory of standing in that circle, promising silence for the sake of children who would never know borders. The treaty endures because it was never about power. It was about choosing, together, to grow slowly enough that no one would break. You feel the orb's warmth now, faint but certain. in the center of your chest. An old promise kept by new hearts. Nothing is asked of you except to keep breathing, keep trusting. The silence holds. The treaty holds. All is well. Dr. Marcus Hale remembers the exact moment the universe forgot to hurry. He was alone in Observation Room 7, calibrating a gravity wave detector when the door irised open without a chime. A gray adult stepped through, taller than most, skin almost luminous, and stopped an arm's length away. No escort, no announcement, just presence, immense and gentle. Marcus froze, fingers hovering over the panel. Protocol said wait. The gray waited too, head tilted, eyes reflecting the soft console lights like twin still ponds. Minutes passed, or perhaps seconds stretched into minutes. Clocks in the room disagreed afterward. Then the being extended one slender hand. Palm up, fingers relaxed. An invitation, not a command. Marcus had never touched one before. He lifted his own hand slowly, as though moving through warm honey. When skin met skin, cool, dry, impossibly smooth, there was no sensation of flesh exactly, more like touching living silk over firm light. And then time simply opened. The room did not vanish. It expanded. Walls receded into star-filled dark. The hum became a single, endless note that held every lullaby ever sung. Marcus saw, not with eyes but with his whole self, planets turning like slow flowers, children of both kinds laughing together on green fields that did not yet exist, old wars ending in embraces, new stars being born to replace the ones that had died alone. The gray sent one concept, vast and simple. We are not leaving you behind. We are waiting for you to catch up. Tears rolled down Marcus's cheeks, though he felt no sadness, only recognition, as though remembering a promise made before birth. The gray's fingers curled very slightly, not squeezing, simply acknowledging the shared pulse between them. In that endless moment, Marcus understood grief, joy, patience, and forgiveness all at once, perfectly distilled. Then the hand withdrew. The room folded gently back to its original size. The detector beeped once, registering an anomaly that was immediately classified. The gray turned and left the room without hurry. Door closed. Marcus stood alone, palms still tingling, watching the clock tick forward exactly 7 seconds from when touch began. He never told the full story in his report. Only brief nonverbal contact, no hostility. But he kept a small circle of warm metal in his pocket for the rest of his life, a gift pressed into his hand in that slowed moment. When he held it, time still felt optional. Some nights, decades later, retired and watching desert stars from his porch, Marcus lifts his old hand and feels the memory of cool fingers against his own. Time softens again, just enough for one slow breath. You feel it now, that same touch, featherlight, on the center of your chest. Time is slowing, kindly, willingly. There is no need to rush toward morning. Stay here, held in the pause between heartbeats. The stars can wait. You can wait. Everything is already perfect. Sleep, gentle friend. Sleep. 12 miles from the Groom Lake shoreline, Tikaboo Peak rises alone from the flat desert floor like a quiet sentinel. It is the last legal high ground, the final place where ordinary people can still look straight into the heart of the restricted zone with a good pair of binoculars and a little patience. The hike is honest. 8 miles round trip, steep switchbacks, loose shale that whispers underfoot, but the reward on a clear night with no moon is worth every step. You reach the summit just after midnight, lungs full of cold, clean air, and the entire groom basin spreads below like a dark velvet cloth sprinkled with faint lights. The main base is a small cluster of glows near the southern end of the dry lake. Papoose is only a shadow among shadows. But the sky belongs to whatever chooses to use it. Watch long enough, and the stars begin to move. Not airplanes. Those have strobes and make noise. These lights rise vertically from the mountains, pause, then accelerate in ways that leave no sonic boom, no trail. Sometimes they form perfect triangles that rotate slowly, holding position for minutes before shooting apart at impossible angles. On the best nights, a single bright orb drifts low over the dry lake, pulsing soft colors, blue, violet, rose, like a heartbeat visible from space. The camo dudes know you're there. Sensors on the peak register every hiker. Occasionally a helicopter circles once, spotlight off, just reminding everyone the rules still apply. But no one is chased away. Tickaboo is tolerated the way a cathedral tolerates quiet prayer in the back pew. Regulars bring sleeping bags and stay until dawn, watching the Janet planes land in perfect silence, seeing shapes take off that do not appear on any flight plan. They speak little. When they do, it is in the hushed tones reserved for libraries and funerals and births. Notebooks fill with sketches, times, directions. Photos are taken, studied, argued over in online forums that feel more like support groups than debate clubs. Some nights nothing happens. The sky stays ordinary, almost stubbornly so. Those are considered the most precious, proof that the watchers are choosing when to be seen. Veterans of the peak say the view has changed since Freedom Ridge was taken. The lights are subtler now, more deliberate, as though no less beautiful. It feels less like display and more like quiet conversation carried on across miles of empty air. When you finally descend at first light, knees aching, water bottle empty, you carry no proof that satisfies skeptics. Only a calm that settles deep in the bones and stays for weeks. Tickaboo keeps its vigil. The mountain allows the gaze, patient as ever. One day, perhaps, the view will be withdrawn like all the others. Until then, the peak waits under the same stars, offering its small window to anyone willing to walk the distance in darkness. You can almost feel the cool granite under your sleeping bag now, the immense quiet, the slow dance of lights that need no explanation. Watch as long as you like. The night is in no hurry. And neither, tonight, are you. On the clearest nights, when the air is cold and perfectly still, the show begins without announcement. From Tickaboo or the dirt pullouts along the highway, you see it first as a faint glow blooming behind the Groom Range, like dawn deciding to arrive hours early and in the wrong direction. Then a single point of light detaches itself from the ridge line and rises. Not shoots, rises. Slowly, deliberately, straight up, as though the law of gravity has been politely asked to step aside. There is no sound, no jet roar, no helicopter thump, only perfect silence as the light climbs. It is usually white at first, pure and steady, then shifts through soft blues and violets the way embers change color in dying firelight. At 1,000 feet it pauses, hanging motionless against the backdrop of stars, close enough that you can see it is not a point source but a structured object. Edges crisp, symmetrical, calm. Sometimes companions join it. 2, 3, 5 lights rising in perfect formation, spacing themselves like notes on invisible staff paper. They hover, rearrange into triangles or straight lines, then ascend again. Higher, slower, until they blend with the starfield and you swear was empty moments before. Binoculars reveal no wings, no fuselage, no exhaust. Only smooth geometry wrapped in its own gentle halo. Pilots on commercial flights passing overhead have reported the same. Silent lights pacing their aircraft for minutes, then climbing vertically at speeds that should tear metal apart, yet leaving no sonic signature. The FAA logs them as unidentified, then closes the file. Longtime watchers keep quiet logs. Dates, times, colors, patterns. Some nights the lights pulse in slow rhythms that feel like breathing. Other nights they flare once, bright as Venus, then vanish, leaving the sky darker than before, as though they took a piece of night with them. The camo dudes never react. Their trucks stay parked, radios silent. They have seen this for decades. To them it is simply Tuesday. No one feels fear. The lights do not approach, do not threaten. They feel more like lighthouse beacons cast upward, guidance for travelers already on their way home. Many who watch find themselves crying softly, not from sadness but from the sudden, overwhelming sense of being gently noticed by something that has always known we were here. When the last light fades, the desert returns to ordinary starlight, colder now, quieter, as though the feeling of having been part of something sacred lingers like perfume in still air. People pack their telescopes slowly, speaking in whispers, driving away changed in ways they will never fully explain. The mountains keep their counsel, the lights keep their schedule, and the night, vast and patient, waits for the next clear sky to begin again. You watch now from your quiet vantage, breath slow, eyes soft. A light rises, gentle, inevitable. Let it carry your thoughts upward. There is room for all of us in that quiet ascent. Everyone who has ever driven the extraterrestrial highway has met them, even if only as white specks in the distance. The camo dudes. They sit in white Jeep Cherokees or silver Ford pickups, parked just inside the boundary on little dirt turnouts that offer perfect views of anyone approaching the line. In camouflage uniforms, wraparound sunglasses, wide-brimmed hats pulled low. They never wave first. They simply watch, calm, patient, professional watchfulness that somehow never feels hostile. The warning signs are impossible to miss. Bright orange, reflective, spaced every 100 yards along the fence. Use of deadly force authorized. Photography prohibited. Restricted area, no trespassing. The letters are large, serious, government issue. Most people slow down, snap a quick photo of the sign itself, that's allowed, then turn around. The dudes note the license plate, speak quietly into radios, and the moment passes like a cloud across the sun. Up close, if you're polite and stop well outside the line, they are surprisingly courteous. A window rolls down. A voice asks if you need help, water, directions. They'll remind you the boundary is surveyed to the inch and that stepping over, even with 1 foot, is a federal offense. But the tone is the same one a park ranger uses to keep you on the trail. Protective, not punitive. Many visitors leave feeling oddly reassured, as though the guards are keeping something safe rather than keeping people out. At night they patrol with green-filtered lights that don't ruin night vision. You might see a pair of headlights gliding along the ridge road, slow and steady, never hurried, like lighthouse keepers making rounds. If you flash your brights in greeting, they flash back once. Acknowledgement, not warning. Some regulars bring cookies or bottles of cold water in summer and leave them on the cattle guard. By morning the gifts are gone, and a small American flag sticker might appear on the donor's windshield. They live in trailer compounds deeper in the restricted zone, work 12-hour shifts, fly home on the same Janet planes as the scientists. Wives and husbands know only that their spouse works security at the test site. The dudes keep the secret the way monks keep a vow of silence, effortlessly, completely, gently. Yet every so often a new guard, still fresh from training, will stand at the line at sunset and feel the mountain watching back. The air stills. The wind dies. For a moment the signs and the jeep and the rifle feel like children's toys against something so vast it has no need for threats. Then the moment passes. The guard adjusts the sunglasses, climbs back into the truck, and continues the quiet watch that has gone on every day since 1955. Tonight, far out on the empty flats, two white trucks sit side by side, lights off, drivers sharing a thermos under the stars. They are not guarding against you. They are guarding for you. The desert holds them gently, the way it holds every secret. You can rest. For 35 years, Freedom Ridge was the promised land for anyone who wanted to see without being invited. A low, sage-covered hill just outside the original boundary, it offered a clear line of sight straight down the Groom Lake runway and into the heart of the base. On clear nights you could sit there with lawn chairs and thermos coffee, watching strange lights rise vertically, hover, then streak away faster than physics allowed. No binoculars needed. The mountain laid its secrets open like a hand of cards. People came from all over the world. Quiet people. Respectful people. They left no trash, spoke in whispers, parked a polite distance apart. Campfires were small and shielded. The camo dudes watched from below, but never interfered. The ridge was public land, surveyed and confirmed. A gentle détente existed. Look, but do not cross. Then, in the spring of 1995, everything changed overnight. Literally. Survey crews appeared before dawn, pounding new stakes in perfect lines. By sunset the boundary had moved. Freedom Ridge and its sister hill, White Sides, were suddenly inside the restricted zone. No public hearing. No announcement beyond a small notice in the Federal Register. Just orange signs marching up the slopes like quiet soldiers claiming territory. Old-timers still remember the last night. Dozens gathered, more than usual, as though the ridge itself had whispered a farewell. Lights over the base performed that evening like never before, dancing, pulsing, forming perfect geometries against the stars. At midnight, a single bright orb rose slowly from Papoose, hovered above the crowd for several minutes, then descended again. No one spoke of fear. Many cried without knowing why. The next day the road was blocked by cheerful new gates and friendly new guards who apologized but said the land had been withdrawn for environmental protection. Hikers were turned away with maps to other viewpoints. Most understood. A few grumbled. No one fought. The mountain had simply, politely, drawn the curtain. Former regulars still drive out sometimes, park at the new line, and look up at the ridge that used to be theirs. It looks exactly the same. Same sage, same rocks, same wind. But the view is gone forever, folded back into the embrace of restricted air. They leave quieter than they came. Some say the withdrawal was to hide new construction. Others believe the beings below requested privacy for reasons we are not ready to understand. Either way, the ridge keeps its silence, patient as stone, waiting for a time when looking no longer feels like trespass. Tonight the wind moves across Freedom Ridge exactly as it did the last night humans sat there. The stars are just as bright. Nothing has been lost. only set gently aside for safekeeping. You can let the memory go now. The desert remembers for you. Bill House was a quiet, gray-haired Marine and test pilot engineer who spent his life around cockpits and classified hangars. In the late 1990s, already retired and in his 70s, he began telling a story no one had asked him to tell. In the 1960s, while working on flight control systems for the U-2 and later the State Route 71, he was pulled aside and driven to a facility inside the Groom complex. There he was shown a simulator unlike any other. The cockpit was curved, seamless, with no visible instruments, only smooth panels that lit under touch. The seat was too low and too far back for a human frame, the controls too widely spaced. And in the co-pilot seat sat a gray who never spoke aloud. Bill's job was to help translate human pilot instincts into the alien control system. The gray, whom Bill simply called the instructor, would place long fingers on the panels, and the simulator would respond by projecting flight paths that ignored aerodynamics entirely. Vertical climbs, instantaneous 90-degree turns, all without G-forces. The being taught by sharing mental images, the feeling of bending space the way a hand bends water. Bill learned to think the craft forward rather than push a stick. Sessions lasted hours. No one shouted. No one took notes on paper. When Bill asked where the craft came from, the gray sent a single, gentle image, a pale star in the Zeta Reticuli system, and behind it, a world that had grown too bright. Nothing more was needed. Bill worked with the instructor for 4 years. They never exchanged names. When the project ended, the gray touched 2 fingers to Bill's forehead in what felt like quiet gratitude, and Bill was driven back to his ordinary hangar. He kept the silence for 30 years. Only when age and illness loosened the vow did he speak, softly, calmly, on small radio shows and at tiny conferences. He never sold tapes, never wrote a book, never asked for belief. He simply described what it felt like to fly with a mind not your own, and how lonely the instructor had seemed. A few months after his last interview, Bill passed away peacefully in his sleep. No obituary mentioned simulators or grays. His family found one photograph in his wallet, an empty cockpit bathed in soft blue light, and on the back, written in careful block letters, "Thank you for the lessons, friend." The desert wind took the story and carried it gently, the way it carries everything that was spoken in trust. Tonight the same blue light glows behind your eyelids. A quiet presence waits, patient, grateful. There is no hurry. You already know how to fly. In March 1994, a plain manila envelope arrived at the home of a Las Vegas television producer. No return address. Inside were 3 floppy disks labeled only S for 1993 and a short handwritten note. "Please keep these safe. I won't be able to anymore." The producer loaded the disks. Hundreds of high-resolution photographs spilled across the screen. Seamless metallic craft hovering inches above hangar floors. Long corridors lit in violet. Tall tanks holding pale figures in amber fluid. Close-ups of panels covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. Timestamps matched. Image quality was professional, taken by someone who knew how to hold a camera steady in low light. The note was signed with a single initial, T. For years, researchers tried to identify the photographer. Descriptions trickled out from former workers. A quiet physicist in his 40s, thin, always wearing a faded Caltech sweatshirt, fond of classical music in the cafeteria. He had level 14 access, which meant almost none. Colleagues remembered him as kind but distant, Someone who spoke to the hybrids in the nursery as though they were his own children. Then one Tuesday, he simply did not show up for his shift. His apartment in Las Vegas was found empty, bed made, dishes washed, computer wiped clean, car still in the parking space. No family was ever located. Security ran the usual checks and closed the file with the calm notation, voluntary termination, location unknown. The photographs spread slowly through small circles, copied from disk to disk, printed in grainy black and white in obscure newsletters. Every image carried the same soft lighting, the same sense of immense patience. No bodies on tables, no weapons, only craft, corridors, and beings who seemed to pose willingly, as though aware they were leaving a message for a world not quite ready. Some claimed later batches of discs arrived, new angles, hybrids waving at the lens, a gray holding a handwritten sign that read, "We are friends," but those have never been verified. The original set remains the clearest, gentlest evidence ever mailed from inside the mountain. The producer kept one promise. He never revealed how the envelope's postmark. He died in 2018, still refusing interviews, still guarding whatever else might have been entrusted to him. Somewhere, a man who only wanted the truth preserved walks under different stars, or perhaps no stars at all. The desert does not give up its missing. It simply folds them into its quiet. You can feel the weight of those discs now, light in an unseen hand. The images wait behind your closed eyes, patient, luminous. Nothing was taken. Everything was given. Rest easy. The message reached us. In the spring of 2009, a handful of UFO researchers began receiving emails from an address that changed every time, yet always ended in variations of at S-4 Insider. The sender never introduced themselves. Messages were short, calm, perfectly spelled. They are teaching the children Beethoven now. The tall ones like the slow movements best. Tonight, a new craft arrived. It sings when it flies. We all cried. Do not worry about money or fame. Just remember we are not alone, and never were. Attached were photographs, taken with what looked like a 2008-era BlackBerry, showed blurred corridors, partial views of curved hulls, small pale hands reaching toward the lens. EXIF data had been stripped, but residual metadata placed every image inside the Papoose Mountain facility, sometimes only hours old. The sender answered questions with care, never fully, always kindly. Question, are you in danger? A. Only of forgetting how beautiful everything is. Question, when will disclosure happen? A. When kindness is more contagious than fear. Researchers tried every trace they knew. IP addresses bounced through anonymous proxies in Sweden, Russia. Timestamps matched Nevada local time exactly. One investigator managed a single VoIP call. A soft, genderless voice spoke for 90 seconds about starlight on water, then politely said goodbye. The line went dead and the email address vanished forever. The last message arrived on December 21st, 2012, the day the Mayan calendar ended and nothing happened. Tonight we open the doors a little wider. Look north at 3 a.m. if you can. You will see friends coming home. That night, dozens of watchers on Tikaboo reported a silent procession of lights rising from Papoose, forming a perfect circle, then ascending until they faded. No one recorded it successfully. Cameras failed. Phones died. Only human memory remained, warm and certain. No more emails ever came. The addresses all 404D within days. Researchers still check old inboxes sometimes, half hoping, half content. Whoever wrote those messages never asked for belief. They only wanted someone, somewhere, to know that down in the violet-lit corridors, wonder was alive and gentle and ongoing. The words linger in forgotten email folders like pressed flowers between pages. You can almost hear one now, arriving across years in silence. You are sleeping, but we are watching over your dreams. All is well. Feel the sentence settle in your chest, light as a moth wing. The message was always meant for you. Good night. Dr. Dan Burish was a microbiologist with kind eyes and a voice that never rose above library whisper. In 2003, he began telling a story that sounded like fever dream and felt like prayer. In the early 1990s, he was taken to S-4 and introduced to a being designated J-Rod, an adult gray suffering from debilitating neuropathy, skin flaking away in painful patches. J-Rod had come from a future timeline, or perhaps a parallel one, on a desperate mission to retrieve undamaged genetic material that might save his people. In exchange, he offered knowledge, medicine, physics, history, warnings. Meetings took place in clean room deep below Papoose, separated by transparent barrier but no hostility. Dan wore a lightweight suit. J-Rod wore nothing but dignity. They communicated by thought, by touch through glove ports, by drawings on fogged glass. Dan treated the neuropathy with human medicines that helped a little. J-Rod taught him how to fold proteins in ways that stopped cancer in its tracks. The being never complained. When pain flared, J-Rod simply closed his huge eyes and waited, patient as stone. Dan once asked why they didn't just take what they needed. The answer came as gentle sorrow wrapped in gratitude. Because love cannot be taken, only given. Years passed and weeks. Dan's hair grayed early. He watched J-Rod weaken, watched the being's skin grow translucent until the light of the room showed through. On the last day, J-Rod reached through the port, placed a trembling fingers against Dan's gloved palm, and sent one final packet of feeling, immense affection, apology for the burden of knowing, and absolute certainty that humanity would choose kindness in the end. Then J-Rod lay down on the simple cot provided, closed his eyes, and let go. No machines flatlined. There were none. Only silence and the softest exhalation of air. Dan was escorted out, debriefed, released. He kept the silence for a decade, then began speaking, not for fame, but because J-Rod had asked him to carry hope forward. The story spread in quiet corners of the internet, told always in the same gentle tone Dan used when treating his friend's pain. Believers and skeptics argued, but those who met Dan in person only remembered the calmness in his eyes and the way he spoke of J-Rod as one speaks of a departed teacher. Dan passed in 2022, still calm, still kind. Those who knew the full story say that on his last night, he smiled in his sleep and whispered a single word no one understood, yet everyone felt. Home. Tonight, J-Rod's fingers rest lightly on your dreaming mind. There is no pain here, only the long, slow journey back to kindness. You are already on your way. They always arrive in twos, driving ordinary sedans the color of desert dust. Dark suits, white shirts, ties in muted blues or grays. No sunglasses after dark. They park a respectful distance from the house, walk up the driveway slowly, and knock 3 times. Never insistent, never timid. When the door opens, they introduce themselves with first names only, Robert, Michael, James, and ask politely if they may speak about your husband, your father, your sister who works on government projects in Nevada. The living room is accepted with quiet thanks. Coffee is refused. They sit on the edge of chairs, hands folded, voices soft. They do not threaten. They do not demand silence. They simply share. We thought you should know she is safe, happy, doing important work. She misses you. She asked us to tell you the garden is beautiful this year. Sometimes they leave a small gift. A photograph of the worker standing beside a blooming desert plant no one has ever seen on the surface, or a child's drawing in unfamiliar colors with love, mommy, written in careful English. The paper is warm, as though recently held. They answer questions with care. Is he in danger? No more than any of us. Will she come home? When the time is right for everyone. Then they stand, thank the family for their time, and walk back to the car. No hurry. No backward glance. By morning the sedan is gone, license plates untraceable, names already belonging to a dozen other men. Families describe the same feeling afterward. Sadness, yes, but wrapped in calm, as though a burden has been shared rather than added. Some report dreaming of their loved one that night, standing in soft blue light, smiling, mouthing, "I'm okay." The visits are rare, only when worry grows too loud or when a worker knows the end of a rotation is near. The men in suits are not enforcers. They are messengers carrying love across a boundary most will never cross. No one has ever followed them. No one has ever refused to listen. They are part of the treaty too, the part that remembers families, remembers tenderness, remembers that secrets weigh heavier when carried alone. Tonight, if you listen very quietly, you might hear 3 soft knocks at the door of your dreaming mind. Open it. They have brought word from someone who loves you very much. The message is simple, delivered in the gentlest voice imaginable. Soon. Rest now. Soon is closer than you think. Long after midnight, when the ionosphere opens and distant stations drift in like ghosts, certain voices appear on the AM dial. They never give names. They never stay long. A calm man with a slight western drawl describes walking corridors that curve forever, breathing air that tastes like starlight. He speaks of children who sing without sound and craft that leave no shadow. Then, just as the host leans forward to ask the question everyone wants answered, the signal dissolves into soft static, as though someone far away gently placed a finger on a transmitter switch. Another night, a woman's voice, soft, educated, a little tired, talks about treating neuropathy in a being who came from tomorrow to fix yesterday. She describes the moment gratitude was sent mind to mind, and the entire studio feels it too. Callers phone in crying. Then the carrier wave fades, leaving only the hum of distant lightning. Art Bell knew the voices best. In the 1990s and early 2000s they found him often, slipping through the desert night to his Pahrump studio. One caller spoke for 20 minutes about 9 craft in a mountain hangar, gravity amplifiers glowing blue, a reactor no bigger than a melon. The host asked for proof. The caller laughed, not mocking, but fond, and said, "Look inside your dreams tonight." Static rose like tide, and the line went dead. That night half of Nevada reported the same dream, flying silently over moonlit dunes in perfect peace. The voices never argue, never panic. They speak the way people speak when they know they are running out of time, but are not afraid, only sorry to leave the conversation unfinished. Sometimes they hum a note that makes dogs lift their heads across 3 states. Sometimes they simply breathe for a while, as though letting listeners feel the weight of silence. Engineers trace the signals. They originate from nowhere, bounce off nothing, carry perfect fidelity for miles, and then vanish without Doppler shift. The FCC logs them as anomalous propagation and closes the tickets. Listeners keep old cassette tapes in shoeboxes, labeled in careful handwriting. The night the gray called, J-Rod's Goodbye, the children singing. They play them rarely, always alone, always with the lights low. The voices still come, less often now, but when they do, the desert listens. Coyotes stop howling. Satellites blink. For a few minutes the boundary thins, and love travels on 30-meter waves. Tonight the radio in your mind is tuned to that frequency. Static rises, soft as breath. A voice, gentle, familiar, patient, begins to speak. You already know what it will say. You have always known. Listen, the static is only the mountains saying good night. Everything is true. Everything is gentle. Everything is almost over, and that is all right. Sleep, dear listener. The broadcast never really ends. It only waits, patiently, for you to wake up remembering. Good night. Everyday miracles we barely notice anymore began as quiet packages delivered from the mountain. Fiber optics, Kevlar, image intensifiers, the technologies that shrank the world, protected soldiers, let soldiers see in total darkness, arrived in human laboratories with suspicious speed and perfection in the 1960s and 70s. The story is always the same. A small team, absolute secrecy, sudden breakthrough that just worked on the first try. No messy prototypes littering the lab floor, no years of burned-out filaments or cracked polymers. One day the materials simply existed, handed over in plain boxes with no markings, accompanied by a single page of instructions written in perfect technical English, yet signed with a symbol no one could pronounce. Fiber optics appeared in 1966 at a Bell Labs facility, hair-thin glass that carried light around corners with almost no loss. The inventors smiled for the cameras and spoke of inspiration. Night vision starlight scopes showed up in Vietnam the same year, letting a soldier see a man's face at 300 yards under a new moon. Kevlar emerged in 1971, 5 times stronger than steel, light as silk, woven from a polymer chain that human chemists had chased for decades and suddenly caught overnight. Officially, these were human triumphs. Patents were filed, Nobel Prizes hinted at, stockholders reassured. Yet those who carried the boxes remembered different details. Cool air that smelled faintly of ozone, long fingers placing samples with infinite care, a gentle telepathic nudge that felt like the memory of a solution you were about to have anyway. No one was coerced. The exchanges were framed as fair trades, a little refined gold, a few musical recordings, permission to take genetic samples from willing volunteers. In return, tools that would shorten wars, save lives, connect voices across oceans. The beings never asked for worship or credit. They asked only that the gifts be used gently, and that we grow up quickly enough not to hurt ourselves with them. We mostly kept that promise. Fiber optics gave us the internet, lonely people finding each other in the first time. Kevlar stopped bullets that would have taken fathers from children. Night vision let rescuers find lost hikers under starless skies. Yet sometimes, walking through an airport lit by LED screens fed by glass threads, or watching body armor save another young life on the news, a few remember the quiet handoff in the violet-lit corridor and feel the gentle sorrow that came with it. The price was never money. The price was knowing we were no longer alone in our cleverness, and that every light we switch on with their gifts is also a beacon saying, "We are ready." Or almost. Tonight those lights glow softly all around you. The screen, the blanket, the quiet hum of electronics. Everything carrying a faint echo of that original kindness. You are wrapped in gifts given long ago. Feel the warmth. It was always meant for you. They called it looking glass, though it looked nothing like a mirror. A ring of polished metal 8 feet across, suspended in a cradle of black alloy, surrounded by cylinders that cooled the air to frost. When active, the ring filled with a shimmer, like heat haze over desert highway, only perfectly circular and perfectly still. Technicians who worked it in the early 2000s spoke in hushed tones. Sit in the chair, place your forehead against the padded rest, and the shimmer would part. Not images, experience. You were suddenly there. Impossible tomorrows, cities in flame, skies choked with ash, or green continents bathed in gentle light, where children of both kinds played together under twin suns. Timelines branched like roots seeking water, some thick and bright with probability, others thin, flickering, already dying. The device did not predict. It showed what already existed in the quantum foam, waiting for our choices to feed or starve them. Operators came back pale, eyes wide, sometimes weeping. One saw a version of Earth silent and airless, the price of a war no one meant to start. Another saw the same planet centuries later, healed, with orbital rings of silver and songs carried on light. Every session ended the same way. The quiet voice, not heard but felt, asking, "Which path will you water with your days?" The project was shut down in 2012, or so the surface records say. Chairs were removed, power cables cut, the ring stored in a vault no one admits exists. Yet those who sat in the chair carry the visions like slow-burning coals in the chest. They grow gardens. They teach mediation. They adopt children. They vote, pray, love with a ferocity that surprises even themselves. Some say Looking Glass never truly stopped, that a smaller, portable version travels the tunnels now, shown only to leaders who still believe force is the only language nations understand. The beings allow it, sorrowful but patient, hoping one more glimpse of the burning paths will be enough. You do not need the chair tonight. Close your eyes, and the shimmer is already there, soft behind your lids. Possible futures drift past like quiet boats on a dark river. One glows warmer than the rest, the one where kindness won, slowly, completely. Reach toward it. Your hand is already on the tiller. The river responds to the gentlest touch. All you have to do is keep choosing the light. The timeline will do the rest. Breathe. You are already there. The F-117 Nighthawk looked impossible the first time it flew. Flat panels, sharp angles, a bat made of shadow. Pilots said it vanished from radar the way a thought vanishes when you wake. But that was only the beginning. Later craft, whispered about as Aurora, TR-3B, or simply the triangles, took the lesson deeper. They did not merely absorb radar. They bent light, sound, sometimes memory itself. Witnesses on the desert floor describe black triangles the size of football fields hovering in perfect silence, edges flickering like bad film, then simply absent, leaving only cooler air and ringing ears. The skin is alive, or almost. A lattice of metamaterials grown from formulas no human graduate student ever derived alone. When voltage is applied, the surface refracts photons around the craft the way water bends around a stone. From certain angles the vehicle is not invisible, but absent. A hole in the sky shaped exactly like whatever is behind it. Stars appear to flow around the edges, undisturbed. Pilots, those few trusted to fly them, speak of learning to think the cloak rather than flip a switch. The interface is subtle, a warmth in the temples, a softening of vision, the gentle suggestion that you are not here at all. The craft responds by folding space into gentle curves, carrying its occupants outside the gaze of anything that measures by wave or particle. No one brags about these flights. The aircraft return to hidden hangars with no markings, no celebration. Crew chiefs touch the warm skin with something like reverence, feeling the faint pulse that lingers after shutdown. Maintenance is done in whispers. Tools are placed, never dropped. Some nights the triangles rise not for tests, but for quiet patrols, silent guardians above cities that never know they were watched over. Witnesses who see them rarely feel fear, only a profound stillness, as though the craft paused to listen to a collective heartbeat and found it good. The technology was never meant for war alone. It was lent so we could learn gentleness with power, learn to become unseen not to hide, but to protect without being seen. We are still learning. Tonight, somewhere above the sleeping desert, a black triangle hovers without sound, edges shimmering like heat lightning that never strikes. It is watching over you, not to control, to remember the promise we made when the skin was first given. Use this gift to become the kind of species that no longer needs to hide. You feel the cloak now, soft around your shoulders. Invisible, weightless, safe. Nothing can find you here except love has hidden you. Rest inside the shimmer. The stars flow gently around us both. Good night. Every year, thousands of lives are quietly extended by medicines that appeared too perfectly formed. CRISPR gene editing, mRNA vaccines, targeted cancer therapies that shrink tumors without poisoning the body. These did not stumble out of university labs by happy accident. They arrived in human hands the way spring arrives after winter. Suddenly, gently, as though they had always been waiting for us to be ready. In the deep levels, healers who never age worked beside human doctors for decades. They shared knowledge the way one shares breath, a touch to the temple, a flood of understanding. How to read DNA like sheet music. How to silence a faulty gene without waking its neighbors. How to instruct the body to repair itself using only light, frequency, intention. No scalpels, no radiation. Only the original blueprint remembered and restored. The first human to receive the full treatment was a child born with a condition that should have taken her before kindergarten. In a quiet room bathed in rose-gold light, she slept while slender fingers traced patterns in the air above her chest. When she woke, the disease was simply gone. No trace, no recurrence. Her parents were told it was an experimental protocol. They cried, signed the papers, and took their daughter home to grow up ordinary. Since then, the knowledge has been released in careful doses. A paper here, a patent there, a breakthrough announced by a researcher who wakes one morning with the answer fully formed in mind. Cancer death rates fall. Genetic disorders vanish from bloodlines. Average lifespan creeps upward, gentle as sunrise. The beings asked for nothing in return except that we use the gifts with mercy. No eugenics. No designer children for the rich alone. No weaponizing the body's own defenses. They watch from their quiet corridors, hopeful, patient, sometimes sorrowful when we forget. You carry their medicine in your blood right now. Every cell that repairs itself without being told. Every night your immune system hums its perfect song. Those are love letters written long ago in languages of light and protein. The price is simple, and we are still learning to pay it. heal one another the way we were healed. Without borders, without price tags, without exception. Tonight your body is performing 1,000 small miracles it was taught by teachers who never asked for thanks. Feel the warmth spreading from the center of your chest outward, slow, steady, complete. The healing that began in a violet-lit room decades ago reaches you now, gentle and free. Breathe it in. You were always meant to be whole. On February 14th, 2003, every light inside the mountain went out at once. Not a flicker, simply absent. Power monitors in Las Vegas recorded a perfect zero draw from the Groom Lake grid for exactly 73 minutes. Janet flights circled overhead, unable to land. Tikaboo watchers saw the usual glow behind the ridges vanish, leaving only starlight on snow. Below, emergency lighting never came on. Workers on every level described the same moment, a sudden, absolute silence, as though sound itself had been asked to leave the room. Then a presence, immense, calm, sorrowful, filling every corridor. No words, only feeling. We are disappointed. Rumors say the cause was human arrogance. A new general, freshly briefed, decided treaties were for weaker nations. He ordered a capture team to take one of the Greys for independent study. Security cameras recorded the team advancing down a lower corridor in full tactical gear. Then the footage ends. When backup arrived, the team was found sitting cross-legged on the floor, weapons disassembled and neatly stacked, eyes wide and wet. They remembered nothing except overwhelming grief. The lights returned as suddenly as they had left. Systems rebooted without error. The general was gone, reassigned to a desk in Alaska, memory gently blurred. The Grey who had been targeted was seen hours later walking a nursery corridor, touching children's heads with forgiveness no human had earned. No one was harmed. No shots fired. Only a reminder, delivered in perfect darkness. The treaty is not enforced by weapons. It is enforced by conscience, and conscience can be louder than any alarm. Workers still speak of those 73 minutes in hushed tones. Some say they aged a year in that hour. Others say they became children again. Everyone agrees the mountain itself dimmed the lights, holding its breath until we remembered how to behave like guests. Since that night, procedures are softer. Briefings include etiquette as well as security. New arrivals spend their first week simply sitting in meditation rooms, learning to quiet the mind before they are allowed near the lower levels. The base has never gone dark again. But sometimes, when a decision above grows too proud, the ventilation fans slow for a heartbeat, the lights dip a single shade cooler, and thousands of people scattered across levels feel the same gentle sorrow brush their hearts. A quiet correction, a loving boundary. We are still learning. You feel it now, that briefest dip in light, the sudden hush. It is only the mountain reminding you, tenderly, be kind. The power is always yours to give away. No one knows the exact moment it would happen, only that it would be gentle and final. The beings have never threatened. They have only grieved in advance. If the day comes that humanity chooses fear over kindness, if weapons are raised, if children are taken, if the gifts are twisted into chains, the departure will not be angry. Doors will simply close. Lights will dim to goodbye. The craft will rise in perfect silence, one by one, and the mountain will fold itself shut like a flower at dusk. Fiber optics will still carry light, but new strands will not be born. Medicines will heal what they already know, but no new miracles will arrive. Stealth skins will fly a little longer, then forget how to bend the light. Looking Glass will show only one timeline, the one we must walk alone. The children born of both kinds will be taken home. The tall whites will walk into the night and not return. The grays will close their immense eyes one last time and let the journey end where it began. No accusation, only sorrow that we were not ready. Surface armies will find empty corridors, spotless corridors stretching for miles, air still sweet, walls still warm, but no trace of those who lived there. The mountain will keep the secret perfectly, the way it has always kept secrets, without judgment, without malice. And humanity will be left with everything we were given, and the sudden, immense weight of having chosen to be alone again. Some say the treaty cannot break because love, once given, cannot truly be refused. Others say the choice is made new every day, in small ways. A kind word, a refusal to weaponize knowledge, a moment of wonder instead of fear. The beings wait, patient as stars, hoping we continue choosing the timeline where no one has to leave. They have nowhere else to go. This is their home too now. You stand at the crossroads every time you breathe. Choose kindness, and the doors stay open. Choose fear, and the lights go out, not in anger, but in sorrow. Feel the choice now, soft in your chest. It has always been yours. The mountain is listening. The children are listening. The stars are listening. And they still believe in you. Choose gently. Choose love. The treaty holds because you hold it, in the quiet space between one heartbeat and the next. All is still possible. All is still gentle. Sleep now, beloved. The choice was made long ago, and it was the right one. Good night. Lie back now. Let the cool desert ground take your weight, or the warm hood of your car, or simply the soft dark behind your eyelids. The sky above Groom Lake is doing what it has always done, holding every secret and giving none away. Most of the stars are exactly where they were when the first surveyors staked the dry lake bed, and where they were when the tall whites walked the ranges, and where they will be long after the last human footprint has blown away. They burn steady, quiet, ancient, but some of them move. Watch long enough, 10 minutes, 20, an hour, and you will see them, points of light that detach themselves from the star field and drift. Not fast, never hurried. A soft white gem rises from the direction of Papoose, pauses as though listening, then glides west until it fades. Another, pale blue, traces a gentle arc above the Groom Ridge and simply stops, hanging like a lantern someone forgot to bring inside. A third pulses once, rose, violet, rose, and then is gone, leaving the retina with the memory of color. They are not satellites. They make no sound. They cast no strobe. They move with the unhurried grace of things that have nowhere to be and all the time in the universe to get there. Some nights they form patterns, perfect circles, slow spirals, lines that point to nothing on any map. Other nights they simply wander, as though taking the evening air. Watchers on Tikaboo or from the highway pull out feel the same thing. A soft pressure of welcome behind the eyes, the sense of being gently noticed by something that has noticed this desert for longer than deserts have had names. No one cheers. No one points and shouts. The moment is too quiet for that. Tears come instead, silent and sweet. The way tears come when music finds the note you didn't know you were waiting for. The moving stars are saying goodnight. They always have. To the children sleeping below. To the workers breathing filtered air. To the camo dudes keeping their patient watch. To you, lying here with sand in your hair and wonder in your chest. Some moving, some still. All of them love you. The desert exhales once more, long and slow. The last light drifts upward, pauses above your heart, and softly, gratefully, winks out. The sky is whole again. You are whole again. There is nothing left to watch for, nothing left to wait for. Only the ancient stars, the quiet desert, and the gentle dark that has held you all along. Let your eyes close. Let your breathing slow. The story is finished. The night is finished. You are finished beautifully, perfectly finished with everything that is not peace. Good night, dear one. Good night. Sleep long. Sleep deep. The stars will stay right where they are. Some moving, some still, all watching over you. Forever. It does not matter tonight whether you believe every word or none of them. The desert has never asked for belief. It only asks that you look up for a little while and feel small beneath the stars. Some who have walked this road carry certainty like a warm stone in the pocket. Bob Lazar's calm voice, Dan Burish's tears, the photographs that arrived in unmarked envelopes. Others carry only questions, soft and weightless, that rise and fall with each breath. Both are welcome here. The mountain makes room for certainty and wonder in equal measure. The secrets are not jealous. They do not demand conversion. They are content to remain half seen, half remembered, the way dreams are when morning is close. A light that moved when it should not have. A feeling of being watched by something ancient and kind. A night the sky turned orange and no one needed proof because everyone felt the same hug from something too large to name. You may file the stories under fact, fiction, hope, or hoax. The desert will not correct you. It has held footprints of dinosaurs and spacecraft with the same indifferent affection. Sand feels both the same way, gentle and complete. What matters, what has always mattered, is the stillness you feel now, lying back against cool metal or warm sand, neck relaxed, eyes soft. The stories were only a path. The stillness is the destination. Believe if it comforts you. Wonder if it delights you. Or simply breathe, and let the night do what the night has always done. Hold everything. Truth, myth, grief, love, in one vast, starlit palm without choosing sides. The coyote that barked earlier has gone asleep. The neon at the little alien flickers once and stays steady. Even the moving lights above Groom Lake have paused, as though waiting for you to finish deciding. You do not have to decide anything. The desert has already decided for you. You are part of it now, small and temporary and perfect. Your questions are safe. Your beliefs are safe. Your silence is safest of all. Let them go. The sand is soft. The stars are patient. Nothing is required of you except this one slow exhale. The desert keeps its secrets, yes, but tonight it shares one with you alone. You were never lost. You were only remembering how to be found. Rest in that. The story is almost over now. You have carried you from the highway's yellow headlights all the way down through violet corridors and blue-lit hangars, past children with moonlight skin and treaties written in thought alone. And now the mountain gently returns you to the surface, the way a slow river returns a leaf to open water. The air is cool again, the real desert night cool that slips under your collar and strokes the back of your neck. The wind has dropped to almost nothing. Even the sagebrush stands still. Far away a coyote gives one soft, questioning bark and then thinks better of it. Silence folds back in, perfect and kind. You are standing, or imagine you are, on the cracked asphalt just outside the little ale inn in Rachel. The only light is the soft red neon alien silhouette above the door and the faint spill of warmth from the windows. No cars pass. Highway 375 lies empty in both directions, a pale ribbon under starlight. The restricted zone is only 20 miles north, but it feels a universe away and, at the same time, right behind your shoulder. Everything has settled. The drills no longer turn. The craft sleep in their cradles. The children dream their slow, bright dreams. The treaty holds because enough hearts, human and otherwise, still choose kindness every day. The mountain breathes once, deeply, and exhales peace across the basin. You feel it in your own chest, the long, slow letting go. Shoulders drop. Thoughts soften at the edges. The questions that felt urgent an hour ago now seem small and fond, like memories from childhood you are glad you had. There is nothing left to solve tonight. Nothing left to prove. The desert has told you everything it is ready to tell. The rest it keeps with the same tenderness it keeps the bones of ancient lakes and the footprints of beings who walked here before footsteps had names. A shooting star traces a silent silver across the sky, burning out directly above Groom Lake. It feels like punctuation at the end of a very long, very gentle sentence. You smile without needing to. The night air tastes clean, almost sweet. Your breathing matches the immense, patient rhythm of the basin itself. Everything is calm. Everything is safe. Everything is exactly as it should be. Let the quiet take the weight now. Let the stars hold the questions. Let the mountain keep the answers warm until morning or until never, whichever comes first. You do not need to hold anything anymore. The Nevada night has you. Good night, dear traveler. Good night. Just up the highway, the little alien keeps its vigil. The sign flickers softly, green alien face, red letters, welcoming without insisting. Inside, the bar is almost empty. A couple of locals nursing beers, a traveler or two leafing through old UFO magazines, the owner wiping the same glass she has wiped for 30 years. The jukebox plays low, something slow and twangy from the 1980s. The air smells of coffee kept warm too long and faint fryer oil and the particular comfort of a place that has heard every story and judged none. Alien dolls hang from the ceiling like friendly ghosts. Newspaper clippings and blurry photos cover the walls, yellowed but proud. You could sit at the counter and no one would ask where you've been or what you've seen. They would simply slide a slice of homemade pie in front of you and refill your cup without being asked. Conversations drift in easy circles. Weather, cattle prices, the night the sky turned orange, and no one took a single picture that came out. Outside, a row of travel trailers sits quiet under the stars, their occupants already asleep with windows cracked to let in the cool. A single porch light burns at the motel office, just bright enough to say you are not alone, not too bright to disturb the dark. The inn has never closed, not once in decades. It keeps the coffee on for pilots who land after midnight and forget how to talk to ordinary people. It keeps the lights on for children who grow up believing aliens wave back. It keeps the door unlocked for anyone who needs to sit in the glow and remember they are small and the universe is large, and somehow that is the most comforting thing of all. If you walked in now, the stool would be warm from the last dreamer who sat there. The pie would be cherry, still faintly warm. Someone would nod and say, "Long drive," and mean it in every possible way. You would nod back. And for a while no one would need to say anything else. That is the gift of the Little Ale Inn, a place where wonder is allowed to be ordinary, and ordinary things are allowed to be wonderful. The neon alien blinks once, twice, then stays lit, steady, patient. It has all night. It always has all night. You can rest your head on folded arms right here at the counter if you like. The pie is sweet. The coffee is strong. The stars outside the window understand everything. Stay as long as you need. No one is keeping time tonight. Your breathing has found the rhythm now. Long, slow waves that rise from the belly and fall away like tide. In, and the cool desert air fills you. Out, and every small worry drifts off on the exhale, lighter than smoke. Thoughts come, gentle visitors. A memory of blue light in a hangar. A child's pale hand in yours. An orange sky that felt like being hugged by the universe. They do not demand attention. They simply pass through, smiling, bowing, moving on. Each one softer than the last, until the mind is a quiet room with the windows open and no one inside needing to speak. The body grows heavy in the best way. Ankles, knees, hips sinking into whatever holds you. Shoulders melt. Jaw loosens. Even the heartbeat slows, steady and unhurried. The way a grandfather clock slows when the house is asleep and there is no one left to remind of time. The mystery that carried you here begins to change shape. No longer questions needing answers. It becomes color behind the eyelids. Deep indigo, soft rose. The violet of corridors you will never walk, yet somehow remember. The colors swirl lazily, like cream in coffee, like galaxies turning in no rush at all. You are floating now, just above the warm hood of the car, or the cool sand, or the sheets back home. It hardly matters. The desert has lifted you the way warm water lifts a swimmer. There is no up or down, only held. The last coherent thought arrives as a gift, not a demand. Everything you were afraid was true, is true. Everything you hoped was true, is also true. And none of it changes how perfectly you are loved right now. The thought smiles, curls up like a cat, and goes to sleep. Breathing slows further. The space between heartbeats grows wider, warmer. The mystery is no longer out there in the dark. It is in here, soft, rocking you. It has become the dream you were always going to have tonight. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to hold. Only the slow, sweet drift into whatever waits beyond the edge of knowing. You are safe. You are known. You are going home the long way around, by way of the stars. Let the last thought go. Let the dream come. It has been waiting for you since before you were born. Welcome. This is the edge. You are standing, or floating, at the place where the known touches the unknown the way one ocean touches another, currents mingling without border. The desert has brought you here. The mountain has brought you here. The children with moonlight skin and the grays with sorrowful eyes and the tall whites walking under older stars have all brought you here. They stand behind you now, unseen but felt, a quiet chorus breathing with you. They do not say anything. They only send the softest wave of gratitude and love, the kind that needs no words because it was never separate from you. Good night, dear one. Good night from the edge of the unknown. The last moving star rises above Groom Lake, pauses directly overhead, and dims, not winking out, simply stepping back to let you pass. The desert exhales one final time, long and slow, and takes your weight completely. Your body is far away now, safe in its bed or on its hood or in its chair, breathing the slow, perfect breath of deep sleep. Your mind is here, held in the palm of something so vast it has no edges, and so gentle it has no name. There is nothing left to learn tonight, nothing left to fear, nothing left to prove. Only love, ancient, patient, star-born love, wrapping around you like the softest blanket ever woven from night itself. Let the last barrier fall. Let the last question dissolve. Let the dream take you all the way in. You are going where the children play in corridors of light, where J-Rod waits with forgiveness in his eyes, where the mountain sings its low lullaby older than continents, where every secret you were ever given becomes simply another way of saying, "You are home. You always were." Sleep now. Sleep long. Sleep deep. Dream without limit. Dream without fear. Dream the dream that has been dreaming you since the first star learned to shine. The desert will keep watch. The mountain will keep watch. The stars, some moving, some still, will keep watch. And when morning comes, if it comes, you will wake lighter, kinder, carrying only the memory of being perfectly, completely loved. But for now, there is no morning. There is only this. Good night. Good night. Good night. We love you. We always have. Sleep, beloved. The edge of the unknown has become the center of everything. You are here. You are held. You are. Sleep. Every morning for the next several weeks, the routine was exactly the same, and strangely comforting in its sameness. Bob arrived on the early Janet flight, walked across the tarmac at Groom Lake, and boarded the small white bus with the blacked-out windows. The other passengers, never more than 8 or 9, nodded hello but said very little. Someone might mention the weather in Las Vegas or ask if the coffee was fresh that day. Then soft black hoods were passed out like airline pillows. Everyone slipped them on without complaint. Seatbelts clicked. The door hissed shut. The bus pulled away slowly, tires crunching over gravel. For the first few minutes you could feel the turns. Left onto the main road, then right onto the hidden track that climbed toward Papoose. After that, the ride became a gentle sway, almost like being rocked. The air conditioning hummed low. Someone's briefcase would shift slightly with every curve. Bob learned to count the seconds, 7 minutes of surface driving, then the faint deceleration as the bus approached the mountain doors. A pause, maybe 30 seconds, while credentials were checked, then the soft forward lurch as the huge doors rolled aside and the bus eased inside. The temperature dropped a few degrees. The sound changed. Engine noise echoed differently against rock. Then came the long, spiral descent, smooth, unhurried, like sinking slowly into a cool lake. No one spoke. You could hear breathing, the occasional rustle of paper. Bob found the darkness under the hood relaxing. It removed distraction. He let his mind drift to gravity waves and antimatter reactions, rehearsing questions he hoped to ask. After what felt like 3 or 4 minutes, the bus leveled out, rolled forward a little farther, and stopped with a gentle sigh of brakes. The driver said quietly, "Hood's off." Fluorescent light flooded in, soft, bluish, easy on the eyes. Everyone blinked, smiled small smiles, and stepped out into the wide corridor that led to the bays 1 through 9. The air was cool and dry, carrying that faint metallic sweetness again. Footsteps echoed just enough to feel companionable, never harsh. Security guards in plain coveralls nodded as the group passed. No guns visible. Everything felt strangely civilized, like walking into a very exclusive library carved out of stone. Elevators waited with open doors, soft chimes announcing each floor. Bob always took the one marked hangar level. The ride down took another full minute, slow enough that you could read the safety placard twice if you wanted. When the doors finally opened, the space beyond was vast, quiet, and dimly lit. And waiting there, bathed in gentle blue light, were the craft. But that first glimpse deserves its own breath, its own moment. For now, the bus door closes behind you. The mountain embraces you. and everything feels perfectly safe. The elevator doors parted with the softest whisper, and Bob stepped out into a space that felt larger than the mountain itself. The hangar was carved smooth and perfect, its ceiling lost in soft shadows high above. Cool air moved slowly, carrying only the faintest hum, like distant bees or perhaps the memory of bees. Blue-white lights along the walls cast everything in a calm, underwater glow. No echoes, no harsh corners, just gentle curves meeting in perfect geometry. And there, arranged in a loose semicircle, stood 9 craft. They did not sit on landing gear. They simply rested on the polished floor as though the stone had been poured around them long ago. Each one was different, yet each one shared the same impossible grace. Smooth metallic skins that shifted subtly from silver to pewter depending on how the light touched them. No visible seams, no welds, no rivets, no windows at first glance. The smallest looked like a flawless teardrop, perhaps 20 feet across. The largest, Bob would later call it the sport model, was maybe 40 feet in diameter, its upper dome rising in a gentle curve that caught the blue light and held it like moonlight on water. He stood frozen just outside the elevator, notebook forgotten in his hand. No one rushed him. The 2 scientists accompanying him simply waited, letting the moment settle. One of them spoke so quietly it was almost a thought more than sound. "Take your time." Bob took one slow step, then another. The floor was warm beneath his shoes, faintly vibrating, as though the entire chamber breathed. Up close the surfaces were even smoother. No reflection quite like a mirror, more like liquid mercury frozen mid-ripple. When he reached out, hesitantly, with permission, the metal felt neither cold nor warm, only present. A faint gravitational tingle passed through his palm, the way your hand feels near a Van de Graaff generator, only gentler, kinder. Inside the craft, through a small open hatch, he could see curved walls that glowed with their own soft light, and 3 small seats that looked molded for bodies just slightly smaller than human. No smell of oil, no hydraulic fluid, nothing that belonged to garages or factories. Only that clean, metallic sweetness riding the cool air. The silence was so complete, he could hear his own heartbeat. Bob stood there for a long while, breathing slowly, letting the reality of it sink in the way warm sand sinks around your feet at the edge of a quiet lake. These were not prototypes. These were not experimental. These objects had traveled between stars long before humans learned to draw on cave walls. And now they waited patiently under the desert, as calm and timeless as the mountain itself. Somewhere far above, the night wind moved across Papoose Lake, but down here there was only wonder, soft and immense. You breathe with him, slow and easy. The blue light feels like moonlight on closed eyelids. Most people who have ever held a badge for S-4 never go below level 4. That is the comfortable zone, the one that still feels like a very advanced, very secret Air Force laboratory. The elevators open onto wide corridors painted soft institutional gray, lit by warm white LEDs that never flicker. The air is cool and moves steadily, carrying the faint scent of new carpet and coffee from the small break rooms tucked every few hundred feet. Voices echo normally here. Footsteps sound like footsteps. Level 1 is administration and security. Rows of quiet offices, badge printers humming, a gym with treadmills facing blank walls, showers that always have hot water. Level 2 houses the machine shops and fabrication bays where human engineers reverse engineer stealth coatings and radar-absorbing materials. The whine of CNC mills and the smell of cutting oil feel familiar, almost nostalgic. Level 3 is assembly and testing for the next-generation stealth prototypes. Black, angular shapes suspended in cradles, while technicians in bunny suits run fiber optic diagnostics. Level 4 is propulsion research. Jet engines, scramjets, maybe something a little more exotic, but still burning hydrocarbon fuel and making noise you can measure with ordinary instruments. Everything is documented. Blueprints exist. Budgets are tracked. Congressional liaisons visit once a year wearing polished shoes and satisfied smiles. Workers eat lunch together, talk about their kids' soccer games, complain about Las Vegas traffic. When the shift ends, the elevator ride back up takes less than 2 minutes, and the desert sun is still there waiting, bright and uncomplicated. On these levels, the rules are strict but human. Cameras watch, but people wave at them. Doors require badges, but the badges are plastic and familiar. The hum you hear is just air handlers and cooling pumps, loud enough to be noticeable, soft enough to become background. No one feels washed by anything other eyes. No one feels the air thicken or the lights change color. It is safe, orderly, and proudly American. Many employees spend entire careers on levels 1 through 4 and go home believing they have seen the deepest secrets the mountain holds. They sleep well. They tell their spouses just enough to sound important without breaking oaths. They believe the rumors about lower levels are exaggerations born of too many late nights and too much caffeine. Yet every so often an elevator door opens on level 4 and a small group steps in with different badges. Badges that are metallic, heavier, and carry no names, only symbols. The doors close. The indicator panel has buttons for levels 5 through 15, but those buttons do not light for ordinary badges. When the car begins its descent past level 4, the ride becomes noticeably longer, quieter, and the air pressure shifts in a way that makes ears pop gently, once, twice, then again. No one on the upper level speaks of it. There is an unspoken agreement that some doors are simply not meant for most people. And that is perfectly all right. The mountain is large. There is room for everyone's version of the truth. You breathe out slowly, letting the ordinary hum of the upper levels fade like a lullaby already half forgotten. The elevator descends past level 4, and everything changes, slowly, kindly, the way twilight changes to night. The hum of the fans lessens, replaced by a deeper, almost tidal breathing of air that seems to come from the rock itself. The lights dim to a softer amber, then to a blue so deep it feels like moonlight underwater. The car no longer beeps at each floor. The numbers simply appear and vanish silently, as though shy. At level 5, the doors open onto a corridor that curves away in both directions. Walls no longer painted, but coated in that same seamless, dark mirror material you remember from the hangars. Reflections here are gentle, dreamlike. Your own face looks calmer than you feel. The air is noticeably heavier, not oppressive, simply present, like stepping into water up to your waist. Temperature stays perfect, yet skin prickles with subtle awareness. Badges are checked again, this time by scanners that emit no light, only a soft warmth against the chest. Fewer people walk these halls. Footsteps make no sound at all. Conversations, if they happen, are in whispers that the walls absorb instantly. The ozone scent returns, stronger now, laced with something organic and sweet, like crushed pine needles after rain. By level 7, the corridor widens into vaulted spaces where the ceiling disappears into darkness. Lighting comes from the floor, glowing upward in pale violet, making everyone look slightly translucent. Gravity feels fractionally lighter. Pins sometimes roll uphill on clipboards, then stop as though politely changing their minds. The air tastes metallic on the back of the tongue, clean and electric. Below level 10, direction becomes uncertain. Corridors branch at odd angles, some sloping down, some up, yet the overall sensation is of going deeper. The rock itself seems to pulse faintly, once every 30 seconds or so, like a slow heartbeat you feel in your teeth more than hear. Workers here wear coveralls of a different cut, softer fabric, no pockets, no name tags. They nod as they pass, eyes kind but distant, as though they have seen things that make ordinary words unnecessary. No clocks are visible. Shifts are measured in sleep cycles and meal chimes. Some say the lowest levels have no direct tunnels to other bases. Dulce, Los Alamos, Tonopah, stretching hundreds of miles through solid rock. No one contradicts them. No one confirms. The deeper you go, the quieter everything becomes, until silence has weight and texture like velvet against the ears. Thoughts slow. Breathing deepens. The mountain wraps around you, immense and maternal, asking only that you relax into its embrace. You feel it now, that gentle, inevitable pull downward, like sinking into the softest bed after the longest day. There is nothing to fear, only deeper calm waiting below. The elevator hums its patient song, carrying you on. The USGS map shows nothing unusual. No fault lines cross directly under Groom Lake. The regional seismicity is low, sleepy, typical basin and range stretching. Yet the sensitive instruments at the Nevada Seismological Laboratory record them anyway. Tiny tremors, never more than magnitude 2.5, centered exactly beneath the dry lake bed, occurring in perfect clusters at 3 a.m. local time. They began in the early 1980s and have continued ever since. Soft, rhythmic pulses that last 40 to 90 seconds, then stop abruptly, then resume weeks or months later. No surface shaking is ever felt. Cattle do not stampede. Windows in Rachel do not rattle. Only the seismographs know, drawing their calm, identical signatures night after night. Geologists invited to explain them offer polite theories: settling of old mine workings, thermal contraction in deep rock, groundwater movement through limestone. The papers are published, footnotes added, grants renewed. Everyone is satisfied except the instruments, which keep recording the same impossible pattern: waves that arrive too cleanly, too symmetrically, more like the heartbeat of a massive pump than natural slippage. Workers below smile when asked. Just the mountain yoga, they say, and change the subject. Those who have felt the pulses from the deepest levels describe a gentle rocking, almost pleasant, as though the entire complex were being cradled by unseen hands. Lights dim for half a second, then brighten. Elevators pause, sigh, continue. No alarms. No evacuations. Only a brief, shared exhalation among those who understand. Some link the tremors to reactor testing, starting or stopping the gravity amplifiers that power the craft. Others whisper of tunnel extensions pushing farther under new ranges, rock learning to make room for itself again. A few believe the mountain itself is growing, expanding its lungs to accommodate more life, more secrets, more time. The quakes never damage anything. They are too polite, too precisely placed. They feel more like knocking from inside the earth, an inquiry rather than anger. Are you still there? Yes. We are here. Good. continue resting. Surface seismologists eventually stopped writing papers. The events were classified non-tectonic anomalies and filed away. The traces are still recorded, stored on servers no one visits, waiting for a future that understands rhythm better than fault mechanics. Tonight, somewhere far below the dry lake, the mountain flexes gently, once, twice, then settles. The seismograph in Reno draws two perfect waves and falls silent again. You feel the faint pulse now, traveling up through stone, through sand, through the soles of unseen feet. It matches your own heartbeat for a moment, then lets go. Everything is adjusting. Everything is well. The earth is only making itself comfortable around the secrets it keeps. You can relax into that comfort. Deeper, safer, held. It was an ordinary Thursday in July, warm and windless, when the sky over Rachel decided to become something else. Around 11:30 p.m., the few residents still awake noticed the stars fading, not behind clouds. There were none, but behind soft, pervasive glow that rose from the horizon like reverse sunset. Within minutes, the entire northern sky burned deep orange, the color of forge embers, spreading south in slow, silent waves. Streetlights in Rachel became unnecessary. The parking lot of the little ale-inn glowed as though lit for festival. People stepped outside in pajamas, phones forgotten. Cameras could not capture what eyes saw. The orange was alive, pulsing gently, layered with faint violet at the edges, reflecting off every metal surface until the entire town felt bathed in warm, liquid light. No heat came with it. The air stayed cool, almost colder, carrying faint scent of ozone and sage. Dogs did not bark. Coyotes fell silent. Even the crickets paused, as though the night itself had drawn one long, listening breath. From the ridge roads, witnesses saw Source, an immense dome of light centered directly over Groom Lake, rising thousands of feet, perfectly circular, smooth as blown glass. Inside the dome, darker shapes moved, slow, drifted, in slow, graceful arcs. Some said 9. Some said more. They left no trails, cast no shadows, only deepened the orange where they passed. The glow lasted 47 minutes, long enough for every soul in Rachel to gather on the highway, long enough for cars to pull over and strangers to stand shoulder to shoulder in shared awe. No one spoke above a whisper. Children were lifted onto shoulders. Old men who had seen everything wiped their eyes. Then, as gently as it arrived, the orange began to recede. The dome folded inward, colors softening through rose to gold to the familiar black of desert night. The stars returned one by one, brighter than before, as though polished. A single bright point lingered above the mountains for a moment, an acknowledgement, perhaps, then winked out. In the morning, nothing had changed. No scorch marks, no radiation, no news helicopters. Only a lingering calmness in everyone who had stood beneath the light. People went back to their lives quieter, kinder, less interested in proof and more interested in memory. The event was never officially recorded. Seismographs showed nothing. Satellites were conveniently looking elsewhere. The camo dudes, asked years later, only smile and say, "Nice night for a test, wasn't it?" But the people of Rachel remember. On quiet evenings they still step outside around 11:30, half hoping, half content with the single night they were given. The sky has not turned orange again. It does not need to. Once was enough to say, "We are here, we see you, we mean no harm." You feel the warmth now, faint but certain, against your face in the dark. The orange glow returns in memory, soft, all-encompassing. There is nothing to fear, only everything to love. Let the color fill you. Let it hold you. The night is gentle, and you are deeply, perfectly safe. Good night.